超啊，熟咯。
哇！
喂，超啊，熟咯。
哇！
저는 늦게 일어납니다.
阿秘咯。
碌啊！咁冇近㗎？
冇，真係㗎，真係㗎。哇！我撞㗎啫喎。
中文字博大精深，中文字博大精深，亦都係我哋嘅母語，亦都係我哋嘅母語。
真係活到老學到老。
前排喺 Threads 見到有人開 post 討論，究竟點讀呢兩個字？發現有好多字我哋日常生活中會見過，但就係唔識讀或者唔知點解。
今站我哋揾咗50個。你有機會見過但係唔識嘅字，我哋會做一個街訪，去唔同嘅地區問下大家識唔識呢啲字呢？
應該呢個係中文字嚟嘅咩？
哇！本身以為唔好難，但係其實都有少少難。其實呢50個字最底嗰行，我自己唔會識咯。呢個字點讀咧？連打都打唔到出嚟喎，係直接一幅圖 crop 出嚟嘅喎。
呢50隻字有5大類，有地方名，
一幅圖 crop 出嚟嘅喎。
呢50隻字有5大類，有地方名、食物名、植物類，有地方名、食物名、植物名，容易讀錯嘅字，仲有最難嘅3疊字啊！喺8個鐘頭之內去揾識讀呢啲字嘅人，集所有人嘅力量，睇下最後答得啱幾多隻字。各位都可以一邊睇一邊參與㗎，睇下自己又識得幾多隻啊！
咁你估個戰果會係點啊？我估我一定會揾到人讀得晒呢啲字咯。即係你覺得會50個？係啊，8個鐘喎，咁多人喎條街。嗱，我自己咧就覺得應該會少過30個，字喎。嗱，你諗下最底嗰堆字啦，你可能見過，但係你唔會識讀喎。就算你咁樣估，你唔會估得到咯。我對大家有信心，我覺得你會輸喎。不過我都會努力嘅，我幫你去問啦。你加油啊！問多幾個啊，唔好要我下晝咁辛苦啊！知唔知啊？你哦。第一站帶咗大家嚟沙田區啦，因為其實新界區係有好多比較難讀或者少見嘅地方名， 或者少見嘅地方名，即係例如呢一個村咧係喺沙田第一城附近嘅。我依家快啲去問下有冇人識先。呢個村咧係喺沙田第一城附近嘅，係喺沙田第一城附近嘅。我依家快啲去問下有冇人識先。Hello，我可唔可以問你幾個問題㗎？
我趕住翻工，我趕住翻工。
唔該晒，
我應該唔識啊，唔好意思。
唔該晒你，唔該晒。個個即刻急步走，個個即刻急步走，同埋避開人，同埋避開人。可以問你幾個問題㗎？你係咪本身都係住沙田區㗎？有冇覺得呢堆？哦，OK，
有見過，但係唔識讀啦呢啲。
洛陽、
雙
馬古南咯，
個博坑、
嘅呢個係佛，
學鬥、黑泥乾村個泥啦。
雖然呢個字都可以讀危，但放喺地方名入邊就會讀圍。但放喺地方名入邊就會讀桅。桅杆係指船上邊用嚟懸掛帆，桅杆係指船上邊用嚟懸掛帆篷嘅杆，所以呢題唔算正確讀音。
大埔滘個滘咯，因為我而家住緊大埔滘，所以我呢個字多博。因為我而家住緊大埔滘，所以我呢個字多博坑村我就去過啊嘛。
呢個紙啊，食壽司咁樣，食壽司咁樣，牡蠣、
牛肉、缽齊啦，即係馬蹄嗰個啦，樂啦，即係啲花嗰啲啦，卓陽嗰個卓啦，荊棘。
都啱咗好多個，
係咪
好勁啊！
我以前讀中文㗎，中國文學啊嗰啲嘅。
唔怪得知咁勁啊中文，唔怪得知咁勁啊中文。
呢個係杯啊，
石豆可能呢個石豆蒸啊，唔係喎，呢個唔係，一定唔係。
呢個冚唪唥都唔識。呢個大圍有一間鋪頭係用呢呢個字。呢個大圍有一間鋪頭係用呢個字嘅。
呢個應該呢個係中文字嚟嘅咩？呢個成個嗰啲符咁樣，呢個成個嗰啲符咁樣。
呢個係渲染，
呢個係寬糖嘅糖啦。呢個係寬糖嘅糖啦。
舉子、緋聞、
緋聞啦，
呢個係夾背破紙啊，
機構啦，
結構啊，
狗
閃爍啦，
閃爍
骨骼、糾正，應該差唔多啊啲，其他都唔係好識。
喺日常生活中，你有冇覺得見過邊一啲？
應該差唔多啊啲，其他都唔係好識。
喺日常生活中，你有冇覺得見過邊一啲字啊？你有冇覺得見過邊一啲字啊？
唔係好多字都見過嘅，都冇話特別去考究點樣讀咁樣咯。
睇下我要唔要真係讀出嚟啦。即係如果我唔需要真係講俾人知嘅話，我就未必會 check。
即係如果有啲英文咧，你拼音你可以知道佢點樣大概點樣讀噶嘛。中文就即係難啲嗰呢方面就。
喺沙田區呢度，地方名、食物同埋植物名都答咗好多啦，但最後嗰行呢就冇人答過喎。
下一站我決定去九龍城。九龍城呢個地方咁多嘢食咧，呢一堆都係嘢食名，可能佢哋會識答。
九龍城除咗好多餐廳之外，仲有好多食材嘅鋪頭，藥材鋪都有。呢啲咁難嘅嘢食同植物名，唔知佢哋識唔識呢？
唔識。
可以試下去問啲餐廳，我覺得佢哋會識讀。我想問你會唔會識讀呢個字啊？
呢個應該係讀個讚。
鋪字咩？
年达到了14亿这么多。那说完了中国是如何一步步成为世界第一人口大国之后呢，下面我们就要来聊一下我们今天的主要的 话题，也就是中国人口的出生率为什么会下降？
那第一个背景因素呢，是与工业的发展和医疗条件的提升有关。背景因素呢，是与工业的发展和医疗条件的提升有关。在1978年改革开放之后，中国的工业就得到了急速的发展。20世纪末起呢，中国就逐渐从农业经济为主转变为工业经济为主。所以有大量来自农村的年轻人，他们会涌向城市，在工厂工作。而且农业现代化也意味着在机械的帮助下，一个工作，而且农业现代化也意味着在机械的帮助下，一个农民家庭不需要大量的劳动力来进行农业生产。所以呢，乡村地区的人们不再像以前那样需要来进行农业生产。所以呢，乡村地区的人们不再像以前那样需要多生一些孩子来补充家里的人力。而且随着医疗条件的提升，婴儿的死亡率也是在大幅的下降。人们也医疗条件的提升，婴儿的死亡率也是在大幅的下降。人们也就不需要靠多生孩子来提高就是后代的存活率。所以第3次婴儿潮之后呢，全国的人口出生率就已经开始慢慢的下降了。
所以说其实如果说没有这个一胎政策，那个人口的出生率也不会像50、60年代那么迅猛的，对吧？像你刚刚讲的这个农业经济，然后转为工业经济，这个就是一个自然而然的会生孩子的数量就会下降这么一个趋势。
对，它在很多国家都能够看到类似的一个发展趋势，就是站在人类的人口发展的一个长河之中来看的话。那第二个人口出生率下降的原因呢，是与计划生育政策有关的。中国是在1971年开始推行计划生育政策，有意来减缓的。中国是在1971年开始推行计划生育政策，有意来减缓人口快速的增长。独生子女政策呢，是在1982年被确定为基本国策。规定每个家庭就只能生一个孩子。与此同时呢，生殖健康和避孕的相关知识与途径在全国也是被开始得到推广和普及。而且很多女性也是被开始得到推广和普及。而且很多女性也进行了结扎手术。当时堕胎也是合法的。所以说人们是有多种方法和途径来实现避孕。所以说人们是有多种方法和途径来实现避孕和安全流产的。这也就让国家对人口的增长进行控制变得更加可行。
对的，我记得就是令我印象比较深刻的一幕，就是我妈在生完我弟之后嘛，她就被带去做这个结扎手术。然后她回来的时候，我当时才5岁的样子吧，然后我就看到她躺在一张那种就是很硬的竹子做的床上面，从一辆3轮车上面抬下来。到现在我都清楚的记得那一幕。我妈还跟我讲过，就是她在怀上我弟的时候啊，那会儿不是会有专门的人员在大街上去抓那种怀孕的女性，对，看他们是不是合法的还是违法的。然后当时我妈就出门说要去坐车坐到镇上去买东西嘛，然后就被人抓到了。最后幸亏是我妈当时已经办了这个准生证，就是因为我们俩相差了岁数，已经符合了他们的要求，就没有被打掉。如果说没有这个证的话，估计我弟就会被流掉。还有一个比较有意思的点，我记得我妈跟我讲的，她说这些抓那种违法怀孕的人很专业的。因为有一些怀孕的人他会试图去掩盖她怀孕的痕迹嘛，比如说穿很专业的，因为有一些怀孕的人他会试图去掩盖她怀孕的痕迹嘛，比如说穿宽松的衣服呀。
是的。
但是他们就是能够一眼就可以
看出来吗？
对，你知道他们怎么看的吗？就是比如说正常没有怀孕的女性，她的胸部是比较立挺的嘛，然后他们就专门看那种怀了孕的女性，她的那个胸部稍微会有一点大或者是下垂，他们就看这些怀了孕的女性，她的那个胸部 稍微会有一点大或者是下垂，他们就看这些，我看到你胸部下垂，你可能就是有可能是怀孕的。
哇，真的没有想到会有这样的一个技巧，而且还在实践中这样的使用，会有这样的一个技巧，而且还在实践中这样的使用。
对。
啊，那接下来我们可以说一下第3个相关的因素，这是关于养孩子的压力方面的。在中国逐步富裕起来之后呢，人们开始更加注重个人的生活质量和家庭的优生优育，而且从个人到国家，质量和家庭的优生优育，而且从个人到国家，教育都是被更加的重视起来的。那随着从个人到国家，教育都是被更加的重视起来的。那随着生育和养育孩子成本的不断的提升，很多城市家庭他们会主动的选择只生一个孩子，因为这样的话，他们就可以有足够的经济资源来让孩子
hành trình của người anh hùng. Chúng theo ta lớn lên theo những câu chuyện hero's journey, hành trình của người anh hùng. Chúng ta phóng chiếu cuộc đời mình lên cuộc đời của những vĩ nhân, và chúng ta phóng chiếu cuộc đời mình lên cuộc đời của những vĩ nhân, và chúng ta coi đó là một cái hình tượng, hình mẫu của sự thành công. Coi đó là một cái hình tượng, hình mẫu của sự thành công. Chúng ta đâu đó cũng nhìn thấy mình trong đó, bởi vì là những vĩ nhân thường những câu chuyện của họ luôn bắt đầu là từ việc là họ xuất thân như thế nào, họ struggle ra sao, họ có những cái nỗi khổ gì, cho đến xuất thân như thế nào, họ struggle, họ luôn bắt đầu là từ việc là họ xuất thân như thế nào, họ struggle ra sao, họ có những cái nỗi khổ gì, cho đến hành trình họ thành vĩ nhân. Sao họ có những cái nỗi khổ gì, cho đến hành trình họ thành vĩ nhân. Nhưng mà chắc là nó vẫn chưa đủ chạm bằng việc chúng ta được nhìn thấy hành trình, chắc là nó vẫn chưa đủ chạm bằng việc chúng ta được nhìn thấy hành trình của một đám tiểu yêu quái. Nó gọi là background trong cái câu chuyện Tây Du Ký luôn. Cái bộ phim đó nó làm cho chúng ta đặt một câu hỏi là có phải là chúng ta luôn nghĩ chúng ta sẽ trở thành một ai đó, nhưng thật ra chúng ta chỉ đang là một nobody trong câu chuyện của rất nhiều somebody. Và chúng ta có muốn một lần dũng cảm để trở thành một ai đó hay không? Trở thành một ai đó hay không? Gần đây em cũng làm một dự án phim. Em là người dịch phụ đề cho dự án phim đó, và đó là một dự án phim. Em là người dịch phụ đề cho dự án phim đó, và đó là một dự án phim mà em cực kỳ thương nó. Đó là dự án phim Cảm ơn người đã thức cùng tôi của anh Trung Chí Công. Thì trong phim đó có một cái câu thoại là của anh Trung Chí Công. Thì trong phim đó có một cái câu thoại là em đã cố gắng rất nhiều năm trời để trở thành một ai đó, nhưng mà cuối cùng em cũng chỉ là một ai đó mà thôi. Thì cái một ai đó mà thôi. Thì cái nhân vật còn lại vỗ về cái bạn mà nói câu đó các bạn là nhưng mà ít ra em vẫn cố gắng để trở thành một ai đó. Ôi, em thấy là cái việc mà mình muốn trở thành một ai đó nó chạm đến các bạn trẻ cực kỳ. Em nghĩ là tất cả các bạn trẻ đều đang được unite bởi một ý tưởng. Nghĩ là tất cả các bạn trẻ đều đang được unite bởi một ý tưởng, đó là tất cả các bạn đều đang cố để trở thành một ai đó. Mặc dù các bạn luôn luôn nghe rất là nhiều những cái lời về câu chuyện là be authentic, hãy là phiên bản tốt nhất của bản thân mình, hãy là chính mình, hãy thể hiện bản sắc cá nhân. Nhưng mà luôn luôn chính bản thân mình, hãy là chính mình, hãy thể hiện bản sắc cá nhân. Nhưng mà luôn luôn như hồi nãy em có chia sẻ là em nghĩ là chúng ta luôn có 3 cuộc đời của mình, cuộc đời mà chúng ta muốn luôn luôn như hồi nãy em có chia sẻ là em nghĩ là chúng ta luôn có 3 cuộc đời của mình, cuộc đời mà chúng ta muốn trở thành, và cuộc đời của những người mà chúng ta gặp mỗi ngày. Mình nhìn bạn của mình, thành công của nó, mình đôi khi cũng có một chút cảm thấy nhìn bạn của mình, thành công của nó, mình đôi khi cũng có một chút cảm thấy tủi thân trong lòng. Và mình bị kẹt ở hai cái social construct đó, mình bị tủi thân trong lòng. Và mình bị kẹt ở hai cái social construct đó, mình bị kẹt ở hai cái gọi là thiết kế xã hội đó, một cái là về ý tưởng về ổn định và một cái về ý tưởng về thành công. Ở trong cái phim đó có một cái cảnh là con tiểu yêu nó về nhà và mẹ nó không dám nói yêu nó về nhà, và mẹ nó không dám nói với mẹ nó là nó đang có một cái cuộc đời, nó đang sống một cuộc đời nó mơ ước, mà nó chỉ dám nói là nó vẫn đang ổn định với nó đang sống một cuộc đời nó mơ ước, mà nó chỉ dám nói là nó vẫn đang ổn định với công việc cũ, và mẹ nó rất là tự hào vì con mình vẫn ổn định với công việc cũ, và mẹ nó rất là tự hào vì con mình vẫn ổn định. Và bỗng nhiên em cảm thấy là người trẻ bị mắc kẹt giữa cái gọi là con ráng có cuộc sống ổn định đi, và cái thứ hai là con ráng có cuộc sống ổn định đi, và cái thứ hai là có một chuyện như vậy mà em cũng làm không xong nữa hả em. Em thấy đó là cái nỗi đau của các bạn luôn luôn muốn làm không xong nữa hả em. Em thấy đó là cái nỗi đau của làm không xong nữa hả em. Em thấy đó là cái nỗi đau của các bạn luôn luôn muốn thoát ra khỏi cái đó. Và đó là lý do tại sao mà em nghĩ là cái cảm giác nobody nó là một cái cảm giác rất là mạnh. Nó đủ mạnh để cho khi mà kết thúc phim nó hiện lên một cái câu, và mọi người hiện lên một cái câu và mọi người chia sẻ cái câu rất là nhiều. Đó là câu cho những lần ta dũng cảm để bắt đầu. Thì em nghĩ là chúng ta hồi nãy nói về câu chuyện move on đó chị. Em là mỗi lần move on là một lần dũng cảm, mà mình không biết mình dũng cảm. Mình chỉ thấy mình fool thôi. Mình chỉ thấy mình rất là foolish, mình cảm thấy mình rất là ngốc, mình cảm thấy mình rất là liều. Và đó cũng là cái ba mẹ mình sẽ nhìn thấy mình rất là liều. Và đó cũng là cái ba mẹ mình sẽ thấy mình rất là liều. Và đó cũng là cái ba mẹ mình sẽ nhìn thấy. Đó là cái mà mẹ mình sẽ bắt đầu cảm thấy rất là lo mỗi khi mà nghe tin là con mình sắp sửa nhảy việc mà chưa đến tháng lương thứ 13 thì là lại rầu. Và liên tục đó sẽ là một cái việc mà chưa đến tháng lương thứ 13 thì là lại rầu. Và liên tục đó sẽ là một cái trận giằng co là vì sao con không ráng ở lại thêm một vài tháng. Cái trận giằng co là vì sao con không ráng ở lại thêm một vài tháng nữa đi. Vì sao con không ráng một chút. Đi đâu con cũng sẽ gặp những trường hợp như vậy. Đi đâu con cũng gặp những cái bức bối như vậy thôi. Yes. Nhưng mà nếu như mà mình chấp nhận nó, mình phải hiệp nó thì yes. Nhưng mà nếu như mà mình chấp nhận nó, mình phải hiệp nó thì em có cảm giác là mình sẽ mãi mãi là một nobody. Nên là em có cảm giác là mình sẽ mãi mãi là một nobody. Nên là mình muốn dứt ra để mình trở thành, at least là mình cố gắng để trở thành một cái điều gì đó lớn lao hơn cái cuộc sống mình đang sống. Cái điều gì đó lớn lao hơn cái cuộc sống mình đang sống. Và đó cũng là một trong những cái động lực lớn nhất để em quyết định là ok, mình sẽ đi học tiếp. Mà mọi người hay nói vui là thường là đi học tiếp chắc là đang lost trong cuộc sống lắm mới đi học tiếp.
Chị có suy nghĩ một chút về việc là chính vì đã có những thế hệ theo đuổi cái hình ảnh ổn định, cho nên cái sự thất bại nó không nhìn thấy quá rõ đâu. Tại vì hồi xưa công việc ổn định là vào, nó không nhìn thấy quá rõ đâu. Tại vì hồi xưa công việc ổn định là vào được nhà nước. Và chị thấy cũng không ai quá so sánh là sau.
La persona que le gusta, la persona que puede tener un rol importante. Me explico. Puede estar mi jefe. Vale, mi jefe no me gusta, pero mi jefe. Y busco su validación. Entonces yo puedo contar un chiste. Mi jefe no me gusta, pero mi jefe. Y busco su validación. Entonces yo puedo contar un chiste y con todo el mundo se ríe, le miro para ver si se ríe él. Un chiste y con todo el mundo se ríe, le miro para ver si se ríe él. Entonces, claro, si en vez de mi jefe es mi jefa, se puede malinterpretar. Entonces, yo esto lo he visto muchas veces, entonces ya me he quedado como diciendo, ostras, ¿es lo uno o el otro? Muchas veces, entonces ya me he quedado como diciendo, ostras, ¿es lo uno o el otro? Ya me toca indagar un poquito más por curiosidad, te lo reconozco, pero se puede malinterpretar. Pero como tú muy bien dices, si hay galanteo y hay personas que se gustan, tú cuentas un chiste, tú cuentas una gracia, cuentas cualquier cosa, y cuando los demás reaccionan, como tú caes y hay reacción de todo el mundo, a la persona que tú vas a mirar, la persona que se pone en el podio, se pone en el número uno, absolutamente. De hecho, mira, hay un reto ahora en redes sociales que me hace gracia porque es que es así. Ponen un montón de chicas mirando la cámara, ¿no? Y un chico detrás. Y dicen, cuando nos demos la vuelta, la primera persona que el chico mire es porque le gusta. Y por lo visto se acierta. Entonces, se dan todas la vuelta, el chico se sorprende como diciendo, ¿por qué me miráis? Entonces mira, y a la primera que mira es la persona que más importancia le da. Que más o menos sería lo mismo de lo que estamos hablando. Muy curioso.
Qué barbaridad. Qué barbaridad. De hecho, yo, un consejo que les doy a los alumnos de AICO
Me preguntan, qué barbaridad. De hecho, yo, un consejo que les doy a los alumnos de AICO, me preguntan, oye, ¿cómo soy carismático en grupo, en una cena y demás? Y es lo que hablamos, tener esa información y hacer lo contrario a veces es muy beneficioso. La persona carismática, el líder del grupo, está acostumbrada a recibir todas las miradas. Si tú quieres ganar el carisma del grupo, el liderazgo, no mires a la persona que siempre lo recibe. Habla y mira, aparte de todo el grupo, pero a las personas que nunca nadie las escucha. Pregúntales la validación y consigues dos cosas. Consigues la persona tímida, recibes atención y dice, wow, me cae bien esta persona. Y el líder del grupo dice, oye, ¿por qué no me está mirando a mí?
Y se interesa.
¿Qué pasa? No lo entiendo, me falta atención y se genera ya ese apego. Oye, ¿por qué no recibo la atención de esta persona como con los demás?
Sí, señor.
Y se genera esa doble beneficio.
La lectura de la necesidad. O sea, ahí tocas el tema de la necesidad. No tiene necesidad. Tocas el tema de la necesidad. No tiene necesidad. O sea, cuando tú está el líder allí acostumbrado a ser agasajado de atención, o tú no le das la atención. El líder allí acostumbrado a ser agasajado de atención, o tú no le das la atención, o le muestras que no tienes necesidad de ofrecerle la atención, se interesan por ti. O sea, es cuestión de necesidad. La vida, además, Adrián, se mueve por necesidad o interés. Son 4 cuadrantes. Mucha necesidad, mucho interés, nada de necesidad, nada de interés. Algo de necesidad, nada de interés, algo de interés, nada de necesidad. Normalmente este tipo de gente, de líderes, ellos son los que no muestran necesidad por nada, interés por alguna cosa, y ven el interés constante de muchos y la necesidad constante de muchos, porque ellos son los alfas, ¿no? Los que tienen recursos, tienen fama, o lo que sea. Cuando no hay este input, les llama muchísimo la atención, les genera mucha curiosidad. Entonces, sin querer, ellos mismos están poniendo luz, están poniendo foco en una persona. O sea, tú por hacer lo contrario, como muy bien has dicho, estás generando foco en ti. Es una gran estrategia.
¿Tú te acuerdas la última vez que un seguidor te pidió una foto o que vino a hablar contigo y que seguidor te pidió una foto o que vino a hablar contigo y que realmente te marcó? Me acuerdo de esa persona.
Sí.
¿Por qué?
Me marcó porque fue una persona que lo estaba pasando muy mal, pero muy mal, que estaba con lágrimas en los ojos en el momento de hablar conmigo. Sí.
¿No la recuerdas por qué bien lo haces, Pincho, me encanta tu contenido?
No.
¿La recuerdas por esa emoción que te transmitió?
Tal cual.
Pasamos a la persuasión. Tenía otras preguntas de gestos, pero este tema... Pasamos a la persuasión. ¿Cuáles son las claves de la persuasión? Hilándolo un poco con lo que hemos abierto.
Pues yo creo que la clave, por decir algo básico y que todo el mundo entienda, es generar confianza, es saber generar confianza. Es trabajar sobre el cerebro de las personas, no sobre las personas. Es trabajar sobre la lógica de los demás, no sobre tu lógica, que es un gran error que solemos cometer. Y hablar el idioma que entiende la otra persona y no el que nosotros solemos utilizar. Tenemos que focalizarnos en la otra persona, pero de una manera sutil, de una manera auténtica. Creo que para generar confianza tenemos que hacer un trabajo previo de autenticidad y de fluidez y de sencillez, que aunque es estratégico y es táctico, no debe ser percibido como tal. Es decir, tenemos que generar una autenticidad táctica. Si a nosotros nos leen como alguien auténtico, vamos a generar confianza. Y cuando hay confianza es cuando podemos llegar al cambio de conductas o persuasión. Pero tenemos que llevar esa línea. Si no es esa línea, podemos llegar a convencer de una manera.
Posição não existe, a não ser em contextos como esse que você está citando, né? Eu acho que essa imposição não existe, a não ser em contextos como esse que você está citando, né? E aí eu acho um perigo sempre silenciar as pessoas porque elas não vão saber se comunicar do jeito adequado. E eu acho isso mesmo para quem não domina a gramática normativa. Então, estou sempre defendendo que a pessoa comete muito erro de português, mas vamos tentar prestar atenção na essência do que a pessoa está falando, né? No conteúdo, porque tem gente cheia de conteúdo que vai falar cometendo um desvio ou outro e tá tudo bem. Então, de fato, quando a gente cai no silenciamento pelo medo, acho que é uma consequência terrível, não faz o menor sentido. Então, como eu vejo hoje, né? Eu entendo assim. Algumas pessoas dizem que falar usando feminino ou masculino faz elas se sentirem excluídas. Então, essa pessoa, se ela quiser dizer, estou cansada, é uma escolha dela. Até porque isso vai acontecer muito provavelmente em ambiente informal. Até porque isso vai acontecer muito provavelmente em ambiente informal, né? Não vai publicar um trabalho acadêmico usando essa linguagem, porque o trabalho acadêmico segue várias regras. Assim como segue a BNT, segue a norma padrão, e a gramática normativa não tem essa possibilidade. Mas a pessoa pode falar assim no dia a dia se ela quiser? Pode. Mas a pessoa pode falar assim no dia a dia se ela quiser? Pode. Alguém falar bom dia a todos é transfóbico? Não, pelo amor de Deus, porque acho que durante algum período isso passou a ser uma sugestão, né?
Até mesmo machista, né?
Ou machista, porque deveria falar todos e todas. E aí, quando você tem a expectativa de que se use a linguagem neutra em todo o discurso, ninguém sabe fazer isso. Porque você vai se deparando com desafios que não foram resolvidos. Com desafios que não foram resolvidos. Então, essa expectativa da linguagem neutra com fins que não foram resolvidos. Com desafios que não foram resolvidos. Então, essa expectativa da linguagem neutra com fins de inclusão é uma proposta em andamento. Várias alternativas foram testadas, algumas foram testadas e descartadas. Vamos usar arroba, então, no lugar de A ou O. Mas o arroba gera consequências ali para os leitores automáticos, não é uma boa saída. Mas então vamos falar com E no final. Puxa, mas com E no final, em várias palavras, isso gera uma dificuldade de compreensão, uma ambiguidade, uma dúvida. Então, dificuldade de compreensão, uma ambiguidade, uma dúvida. Então, acho que assim, como não existe nenhuma solução, não existe se você quiser consultar um manual, não, eu decidi que eu vou usar a linguagem neutra. Consultar um manual, não, eu decidi que eu vou usar a linguagem neutra. Esse manual não existe, então não tem como cobrar das pessoas que sigam um parâmetro. Manual não existe, então não tem como cobrar das pessoas que sigam um parâmetro que não está definido. Eu acho que é mais do que suficiente se a gente respeitar a pessoa que falar, estou cansada, sem a expectativa de que se diga bem-vindos, bem-vindas e bem-vindes. Né? Quem faz isso muitas vezes quer só sinalizar, olha, tem público trans aqui, vocês são parte de quem eu valorizo, vocês são meus interlocutores, quem eu valorizo, vocês são meus interlocutores. A gente entende como uma declaração de posicionamento.
E acho que o não binário, a linguagem neutra é muito mais focado no não binário, né? Que ainda também é um outro.
Exato.
Puta, que ainda é um outro aspecto que é difícil a gente entender, né? O que é. É uma dificuldade, às vezes, da própria sociedade absorver a ideia também, né?
Se a gente pensar no fato de que a maior parte das pessoas não consegue diferenciar fato de opinião, é esperar demais que a compreensão do não binarismo seja ampla e atinja a maior parte da população. Então, sim, o conceito já é complexo o suficiente para a maior parte das pessoas. Eu não acho que nunca vai ser obrigatório o uso de linguagem neutra. Eu acho que algum dia pode ser que ele seja possível para aqueles que queiram. Eu acho que algum dia pode ser que ele seja possível para aqueles que queiram, mas eu acho que a gente tem que tomar esse cuidado de não rotular as pessoas porque elas disseram bom dia a todos, ou todos e todas, ou todos, todas e todes, porque isso não é informativo o suficiente.
E é um não problema, né? Eu sinto que às vezes tipo o banheiro trans, entendeu? Tipo assim, caraca, vamos proibir banheiro trans. Em Caruaru, você fala assim, meu Deus, quem é que Caruaru tá querendo tanto? Fala assim, meu Deus, quem é que Caruaru tá querendo tanto assim um banheiro trans, tá ligado? Que loucura. Parece que é um problema.
Banheiro. Parece.
Banheiro trans, tá ligado? Que loucura. Parece que é um problema que você fala, meu Deus, é preciso ter 25 projetos de lei contra essa parada. Parece que a gente tá falando. Porque a linguagem das ruas é a linguagem neutra, né? Quando, pô, que nem eu falei, eu fui em um evento. Né? Quando, pô, que nem eu falei, eu fui em um evento, num 38 anos de vida, fui em um rolê. Foi horrível, foi. Talvez eu goste que a lei seja aprovada, foi péssimo o evento. Mas tudo bem, mas tipo, é um não problema, né? Uma coisa que não sinto que 25 projetos de lei contra isso sejam necessários. Que não sinto que 25 projetos de lei contra isso sejam necessários, às vezes.
Por quê, né? E assim, as pessoas estão por aí falando de jeitos muito variados, usando a língua do jeito que elas querem, usando dialetos e formas regionais e formas informais e jargões e não sei o quê. E aí vem uma questão que, porque tem um fundo que mexe ideologicamente com as pessoas, e vai se tornar o grande representativo da briga pela
Io tipo avevo montato la mia libreria al contrario, montare i mobili, io tipo avevo montato la mia libreria al contrario, vabbè, non so montare i mobili, io tipo avevo montato la mia libreria al contrario, vabbè, non sono un'esperta di montaggio mobili. Comunque, insomma, il nostro ufficio
Mobili.
sono un'esperta di montaggio mobili. Comunque, insomma, il nostro ufficio era bello e terminato e mi ricordo ai primi di maggio o fine aprile, siamo venuti bello e terminato e mi ricordo ai primi di maggio o fine aprile, siamo venuti in ufficio un giorno e abbiamo visto una macchia nell'angolo in alto nel mio ufficio. Nell'angolo in alto nel mio ufficio.
Quindi dopo 3 giorni
Nell'angolo in alto nel mio ufficio.
quindi dopo 3 giorni
Sì, dopo poco.
sì, insomma, l'imbianchino aveva appena finito.
Sì, dopo poco.
Sì, insomma, l'imbianchino aveva appena finito di imbiancare
Esatto.
e dopo 3-4 giorni siamo finito di imbiancare
Esatto.
e dopo 3-4 giorni siamo venuti qua e abbiamo trovato questa macchia gialla.
Esatto. E ogni giorno
abbiamo trovato questa macchia gialla.
Esatto. E ogni giorno si espandeva sempre di più. Quindi e non solo nel mio ufficio, ma anche nel bagno, perché sempre di più. Quindi e non solo nel mio ufficio, ma anche nel bagno, perché sono attigui, quindi sono di fianco praticamente.
Ma non solo la macchia, hanno cominciato a formarsi delle crepe.
Esatto.
Ma non solo la macchia, hanno cominciato a formarsi delle crepe.
Esatto. Esatto.
Attenzione, quindi abbiamo capito che c'era un'infiltrazione.
Nell'appartamento di sopra.
Era il periodo. C'era un'infiltrazione.
Nell'appartamento di sopra.
Era il periodo di festa del 25
Ah,
aprile.
è vero!
E infatti non riuscivamo a contattare il proprietario.
Esatto, è vero.
Era un periodo di festa, quindi è passata.
Sì, perché c'è stato un ponte lungo in quel periodo.
C'era il 23 che era a San Giorgio, quindi è passata.
Sì, perché c'è stato un ponte lungo in quel periodo.
C'era il 23 che era San Giorgio.
Esatto.
Il 25 aprile la festa della liberazione, poi il 1° maggio.
No, ma perché poi il 25.
Poi il 1° maggio.
No, ma perché poi il 25 cadeva, mi sembra, di venerdì e poi c'era il sabato e la domenica,
C'era il fine
quindi
settimana
praticamente
lungo.
per una settimana non siamo riusciti a comunicare con nessuno.
E intanto la macchia.
Una settimana non siamo riusciti a comunicare con nessuno.
E intanto la macchia si espandeva e la vernice cascava giù sopra. Vernice. La macchia si espandeva e la vernice cascava giù sopra. Sul water, sul bidet in bagno trovavamo sempre i pezzi
di intonaco
di muro
che si staccava.
Sì, è stato siamo riusciti a contattare il proprietario che ha mandato
subito l'idraulico a verificare nell'appartamento di sopra e in effetti con poco l'idraulico è riuscito a fermare la perdita, ma naturalmente non si può imbiancare subito. Bisogna aspettare che il muro si asciughi.
Esatto, quindi ci hanno detto
un paio di mesi.
Un paio di mesi, aspettare. In effetti adesso si è asciugato. Beh, possiamo dirlo, è che i signori del piano di sopra avevano una fascetta del water che si era aperta e quindi l'acqua del loro bagno
Esatto, è filtrata.
è filtrata nel muro fino al nostro ufficio, appena imbiancato. Filtrata nel muro fino al nostro ufficio, appena imbiancato. Ma va bene, spero che pagheranno loro.
Esatto, adesso
Ma va bene, spero che pagheranno loro.
esatto, adesso dobbiamo insomma attendere che vengano a sistemare perché il muro adesso è asciutto. Attendere che vengano a sistemare perché il muro adesso è asciutto, quindi
Ma non è finita qui.
Ah, è vero?
Perché il peggio purtroppo
Lo
deve
di
che il peggio purtroppo
Lo
deve
dici
ancora
tu?
deve ancora arrivare, di tuo fratello.
Ah, no, pensavo
Deve ancora arrivare, di tuo fratello.
pensavo dicessi un'altra cosa.
Oh, cosa? Mi son dimenticato un'altra peripezia.
Dovete sapere che,
Cosa? Mi son dimenticato un'altra peripezia.
Dovete sapere che, poco dopo aver affittato l'ufficio, hanno iniziato i lavori proprio nella stradina.
Ufficio.
Dopo aver affittato l'ufficio, hanno iniziato i lavori proprio nella stradina qui di fronte.
Perché
E
la cosa bella è che il nostro ufficio si affaccia proprio su una stradina pedonale
Esatto.
che porta in centro proprio, è proprio il centro di Ferrara.
Quindi è molto tranquilla come via.
Noi se usciamo dalla porta del nostro ufficio vediamo il castello di Ferrara.
Esatto.
Poi se usciamo dalla porta del nostro ufficio vediamo il castello di Ferrara.
Esatto.
Peccato che sì, sempre in quel periodo lì hanno chiuso questa stradina
Esatto.
per rifare tutta la strada, ma anche per lì hanno chiuso questa stradina
Esatto.
per rifare tutta la strada, ma anche per sistemare tutti i condotti dell'acqua.
Esatto, tutte le tubature.
Quindi hanno sventrato l'asfalto con gli escavatori. E hanno trivellato l'asfalto per quanti mesi?
Parecchio. Parecchio. Poi anche quando abbiamo dovuto portare i mobili qui, insomma non è stato semplice perché la strada era tutta sventrata, quindi insomma è stato molto scomodo anche trasportare per il muratore, trasportare tutti i suoi materiali e una volta terminati i lavori dentro per noi trasportare appunto i mobili e tutte le cose. E poi immaginate il rumore.
Era impossibile fare lezione, era impossibile fare video, perché ovviamente, giustamente, gli operai stavano lavorando. Non possiamo dare la colpa agli operai, hanno avuto questo incarico, e quindi è durato mesi, fino 2 mesi forse.
Sì, quando poi è successo di mio fratello, in effetti c'erano ancora i lavori, perché io sono dovuta andare in Svizzera dove abita mio fratello per praticamente un mese, perché lui ha avuto un problema di salute, quindi insomma sono andata là e di fatto in quel periodo tu hai lavorato da casa e quando siamo rientrati tutto era sistemato. Quindi quando sono rientrata, diciamo, in Italia e siamo venuti in ufficio, la strada era perfetta, tutta sistemata, nuovo asfalto, nuovo marciapiedi. La strada era perfetta, tutta sistemata, nuovo asfalto, nuovo marciapiedi, abbiamo i nuovi portabici e anche il nostro ufficetto abbiamo i nuovi portabici e anche il nostro ufficetto
Sì, però alla fine tra il problema con l'elettricità, con internet, con i lavori, con il problema del muro e tuo fratello che comunque ti ha tenuto in Svizzera, non è che ti ha
No,
tenuto lì.
esatto.
Il
Ne
problema
avrebbe fatta meno lui.
il problema di tuo fratello che ti ha tenuto in Svizzera per un mese e poi siamo partiti per le vacanze e qui in Svizzera per un mese e poi siamo partiti per le vacanze e quindi alla fine da gennaio ci siamo stabilizzati nel nostro ufficio.
Je sais pas, en l'espace d'une heure ou 2 heures, j'angoisse un peu, je n'aime pas du tout cet en l'espace d'une heure ou 2 heures, j'angoisse un peu, je n'aime pas du tout cet appartement, je m'y sens pas bien, je me sens pas bien dedans. J'étais jeune, j'avais mal visité l'appartement, je l'avais visité, c'était un appartement d'une amie, je l'avais vu une seule fois, à une fête. Appartement d'une amie, je l'avais vu une seule fois, à une fête, alors que l'appartement était meublé, donc j'avais mal vu, il était sous les toits. L'appartement était meublé, donc j'avais mal vu, il était sous les toits, il faisait super chaud et surtout on avait, découvert et ouais, un truc il faisait super chaud et surtout on avait, découvert et ouais, un truc dégueulasse. On avait, trouvé derrière les toilettes un rat mort, donc avec l'odeur et cetera et puis c'est là où on avait en fait mon père qui avait l'odeur et cetera et puis c'est là où on avait en fait mon père qui avait l'habitude un peu des appartements, trouvé qu'il y avait plein de vices, plein de soucis, plein de problèmes, plein de trucs qui marchaient pas,
Donc
qui ne fonctionnaient pas.
est-ce que tu es resté dans cet appartement?
Et donc il a senti que j'étais pas bien, que je ne le sentais
Appartement.
et donc il a senti que j'étais pas bien, que je ne le sentais pas, que je n'avais pas envie d'y rester, sentais pas, que je n'avais pas envie d'y rester, de vivre là et moi par fierté, aussi par ego et par fierté, aussi par ego et par fierté, aussi par ego et parce
Non,
que
puis
aussi
par,
par res
volonté, ouais, voilà, par respect quoi, pour pas
par respect et puis parce que je me suis dit: «Bon, bah, il faut que j'attende un peu, il faut que je vois si j'aime bien» et en fait, je me souviens qu'il est parti, qu'il est rentré, chez lui, je crois et que, bah, voilà, au bout d'1 heure ou 2 heures, j'ai dit à mon père: «Bah, en fait», je crois qu'il m'a un peu tendu la perche, hein. Et mon père: «Bah, en fait», je crois qu'il m'a un peu tendu la perche, hein. Il m'a dit: «Mais» ou ma mère, ils m'ont dit: «Mais est-ce que tu veux tu es pas obligé, si tu veux pas vivre ici, tu peux partir» et j'ai ou ma mère, ils m'ont dit: «Mais est-ce que tu veux tu es pas obligé, si tu veux pas vivre ici, tu peux partir» et j'ai dit:
Sympa.
«Oh, je vais tu veux pas vivre ici, tu peux partir» et j'ai dit:
Sympa.
«Oh, je vais voir» et puis, au final, je leur ai envoyé, je crois, un texto, je les ai appelés, je leur ai dit: «Mais» je leur ai envoyé, je crois, un texto, je les ai appelés, je leur ai dit: «Mais en fait, non, je me sens pas du tout bien ici, il y avait plein de soucis. Là, maintenant, je me sens pas du tout bien ici, il y avait plein de soucis». L'avantage aussi en France, c'est que, quand on entre dans un nouvel appartement, on loue un appart ou une maison, on a le droit de pas de se appartement, on loue un appart ou une maison, on a le droit de pas de se rétracter, hein. Une fois qu'on a signé, on a signé. Par contre, on peut pas rétracter, hein. Une fois qu'on a signé, on a signé. Par contre, rétracter, hein. Une fois qu'on a signé, on a signé. Par contre, on peut partir 1 mois après. On a juste 1 mois à payer, à attendre et on peut partir. Ce qui n'est pas le cas dans plein de pays. Ce qui n'est pas le cas dans plein de pays. En Espagne, je crois que c'était
Dans
minimum 6
et
mois.
en Belgique
Voilà.
notamment, pour, mon amie, qui habite en Belgique, elle doit rester presque, 3 ans dans son
Waouh.
appartement, sinon elle doit payer des doit rester presque, 3 ans dans son
Waouh.
appartement, sinon elle doit payer des indemnités.
Donc ça, c'est une chance pour le locataire, moins pour, le
Et
propriétaire, mais
donc
moi j'ai pu donc locataire, moins pour, le
et
propriétaire, mais
donc
moi j'ai pu
Hey, Snarborlax. I'll say about 2 years, I think. I believe I started back in 2024, so I can look it up the stats real quick. Mostly it's just listening and reading, so I'll say about 2 years. So pretty much back in 2024, somewhere around here. Yeah, I think it's exactly 2 years already. Wow. Just listening every day for the last 2 years straight. Pretty consistent from here. As consistent as I think I can be.
donc réintégrer, retourner dans le précédent appartement qui était encore disponible et voilà, sacrée histoire et c'est vrai que c'était pas top, mais tout ça Voilà, sacrée histoire et c'est vrai que c'était pas top. Mais tout ça pour dire que Violaine, le mois de juillet, c'est finalement le mois où les Français. Tout ça pour dire que Violaine, le mois de juillet, c'est finalement le mois où les Français, on l'a vu, statistique, déménagent et emménagent le plus.
Et aussi les Canadiens et les Québécois.
Ah, ok. Français, on l'a vu, statistique, déménagent et emménagent le plus.
Et aussi les Canadiens et les Québécois.
Ah,
Parce que
ok.
j'ai vu qu'au Québec, il y a le aussi les Canadiens et les Québécois.
Ah,
Parce que
ok.
j'ai vu qu'au Québec, il y a le jour du déménagement qui est le 1er juillet. Et en général, comment on dit le jour du déménagement qui est le 1er juillet. Et en général, comment on dit bail au pluriel? Parce que tu as dit on signe un bail un bail de
On le
location.
dit.
Bail au pluriel. Parce que tu as dit bail au pluriel. Parce que tu as dit on signe un bail un bail de
On
location.
le dit au singulier en fait.
Oui, mais là, c'est parfois on doit le dire.
On le dit au singulier en fait.
Oui, mais là, c'est parfois on doit le dire au pluriel. On peut signer plusieurs.
Beau.
Dire au pluriel. On peut signer plusieurs.
Beau.
Exactement. Et donc le 1er juillet, en général, c'est ce que j'ai vu sur Internet. Au Québec, c'est là, en général, c'est ce que j'ai vu sur Internet. Au Québec, c'est là où se terminent les baux, en général. Donc les gens déménagent ensuite le 1er juillet. Terminent les baux, en général. Donc les gens déménagent ensuite le 1er juillet pour aller dans un nouvel appartement.
Mais nous,
Voilà.
en France, on peut partir quand on veut, mais c'est marrant de voir que. Et nous,
Voilà.
en France, on peut partir quand on veut, mais c'est marrant de voir que c'est vraiment le mois de juillet et le mois d'août qui sont les mois où les gens. Que c'est vraiment le mois de juillet et le mois d'août qui sont les mois où les gens déménagent le plus. Mais est-ce que c'est vraiment une surprise finalement quand les gens déménagent le plus? Mais est-ce que c'est vraiment une surprise finalement quand on sait que c'est aussi la fin de l'année scolaire, les enfants sont en vacances? Quand on sait que c'est aussi la fin de l'année scolaire, les enfants sont en vacances, c'est la fin des études, c'est le moment où on fait aussi un point vacances, c'est la fin des études, c'est le moment où on fait aussi un point.
On sort de l'hibernation de l'hiver.
On a le temps
ouais.
aussi, voilà. Donc on veut changer tout ça, quoi. Voilà.
On aurait encore plein de choses à dire. Il y a en fait autant de. On aurait encore plein de choses à dire. Il y a en fait autant de déménagements qu'il y a de Français. Tu vois, j'ai envie de dire. Mais je pense à certains de nos étudiants. Je pense aussi à nos grands-parents. Il y a aussi des gens qui déménagent pour prendre leur retraite dans un autre endroit. Alors tout le monde n'a pas cette possibilité, mais on a des étudiants. Alors tout le monde n'a pas cette possibilité, mais on a des étudiants qui sont venus prendre leur retraite en France. Et puis moi, mes grands étudiants qui sont venus prendre leur retraite en France. Et puis moi, mes grands-parents ont quitté la région parisienne pour prendre leur retraite en Bretagne.
Voilà.
Donc voilà.
Pour avoir une meilleure qualité de vie. Ma grand-mère, c'est exactement ça. Elle avait quitté son village assez jeune pour aller faire ses études à Paris. Elle avait quitté son village assez jeune pour aller faire ses études à Paris, pour travailler à Paris, pour bien gagner sa vie à Paris. Et puis finalement, elle a pris sa retraite. C'est aussi l'une des raisons. Finalement, elle a pris sa retraite. C'est aussi l'une des raisons personnelles pour lesquelles on déménage. C'est quand on part à la retraite et ma grand-mère est retournée dans son village. Et ma grand-mère est retournée dans son village. Et c'est vrai que dans son village, elle a un grand jardin. Dans son village, elle a un grand jardin. Il y a, je trouve, à mon avis, une meilleure qualité de vie qu'à Paname, qu'à Paris, comme on dit.
Et c'est peut-être pour ça qu'on l'espère qu'elle sera centenaire. C'est tout ce qu'on lui souhaite, en tout cas.
On est proche d'atteindre ce
qu'on lui souhaite, en tout cas.
On est proche d'atteindre ce
qu'on lui souhaite, en tout cas.
On est proche d'atteindre ce but.
On va vous laisser.
Ouais.
Je pense que vous savez presque tout sur les déménagements en France, donc on vous laisse et on vous dit à la semaine prochaine.
Et quelques questions avant de
oui,
dire
tu
à
as
la
raison.
semaine prochaine. Violaine, tu oublies peut-être l'essentiel. Mais vous, est-ce que vous déménagez? Est-ce que vous aimez déménager? Est-ce que vous avez beaucoup déménagé? Et puis pour quelles raisons surtout vous avez déménagé? Où? À quel endroit? Dans un village, dans une ville, à l'étranger peut-être? Voilà, racontez-nous. Laissez-nous un commentaire, c'est très important. Et puis on lit tout. Donc commentaire, c'est très important. Et puis on lit tout. Donc allez-y.
Et là, on se retrouve donc sur Patreon dans quelques secondes pour pratiquer. Et là, on se retrouve donc sur Patreon dans quelques secondes pour pratiquer un petit peu le conditionnel.
すべての材料を集めました。
いる予定ですか？
多分2年ぐらい、
うんうん
2年ぐらい、
うん
日本に住んでいます。
あ、
多分もっと長い、
はい
多分仕事もっと長い、
はい
多分仕事探す後で。
なるほど。
でももっと日本語勉強したい。
あーはい
今はめっちゃ下手だ。日本に多分長い住みたい、
うん
もっと長い住みたい。
長く住みたいですか？うん。いいですね。
日本めっちゃ好きから。
そうですか。じゃあ前日本に来たことがありますか
3年ぐらい前、
うん
友達と、旅行した。
いいですね。
楽しかった。
旅行して楽しかったから日本で勉強していますか？
はい。
ニーナさんの出身はどこですか？
出身は、スロバキア人です。
スロバキアにいた時からずっと日本語を勉強していますか？
スロバキアでちょっとだけ日本語勉強した。多分6ヶ月ぐらい勉強した。ちょっとだけ。
自分で
YouTube から。ケンさんのチャンネルから。マジで。
ありがとうございます。そういつも見てくれて。
ありがとうございます。
ありがとうございます。そういつも見てくれて。
ありがとうございます。他のチャンネルも見た。会話とか、ちょっと文法とか、ちょっとだけ文法、でも会話たくさん聞いたけど、もっと勉強したい。会話たくさん聞いたけど、もっと勉強したい。もっと勉強しなきゃ。
ね、それもっと勉強しなきゃ。じゃあ、スロバキアにいた時も、オンラインで日本人と話す練習しましたか？
ない。でも、会話だけ聞いた。会話だけ聞いた。けど、日本にいたとき、日本人ちょっと話したでもちょっとだけ。
今、東京に住んでいますね。
東京に住んでいます。
毎日、日本人と日本語で話す機会ありますか？
毎日ない。
ない
私の大学、英語で。
そうですか。
英語で、すべて英語で。だから、多分、お店だけで話す。
その店員さんと話すとき、注文するとき。
注文するとき。
すみません、一つください。店員さんと話すとき、注文するとき。
注文するとき。
すみません、一つください。
すみません、お風呂。袋一つください。みたいな。
コンビニ
で。大丈夫です。ちょっとだけ。
じゃあ、日本人の友達もいますか？
いますけど、英語話せます。だから、英語で一緒に話す。
そうか。ニーナさんは、スロバキア人で、スロバキア語話す。が母国語で、英語もペラペラで。
英語ペラ。スロバキア語話す。
が母国語で、英語もペラペラで。
英語ペラペラ。私の大学イギリスで勉強した。
そうですか。
ちょっとペラペラ。
そうなの。それは知らなかったです。じゃあ、イギリスにも住んだことがあります
3年ぐらい。
3年ぐらい。
楽しかった。
いいですね。僕まだイギリスもスロバキアも行ったことがないです。
行ったことがない。
でも行きたい。
ヨーロッパに行ったことある？
ないです。まだないです。
行ってください。
はい。ありがとうございます。言語も違うし、文化も違うから、絶対行ってみたいです。
めっちゃ違う。
ですよね。
ちょっとびっくりした。
日本で何にびっくりしましたか？
日本人めちゃめちゃ優しい。
そうですか？
いつも助ける。めっちゃ優しい。
ニーナさんはいつ日本に来ましたか
？4月2日。
4月2日。そう。1ヶ月くらい前。
1ヶ月だけ。
1ヶ月。
すべてめっちゃ新しい。
ね、そうですよね。日本の生活はどうですか？
めっちゃ好き。めっちゃ好き。生活、食べ物美味しい。日本人優しい。大学面白い。
そうですか。
すべて好き。たくさん友達あった。
いいですね。
日本人も外国人。だから東京都心に時々行きだから東京都心に時々行きます。めっちゃ楽しい。
いいですね。日本の食べ物が好きですか？
好き。いつも食べる。
いつも例えば
ざるそば、うどん、カレー、天ぷら、寿司、 納豆、梅干し。
納豆好きですか？
毎日納豆食べる。
毎日納豆。僕も納豆好きです。
マジで、朝ごはん毎日納豆。
美味しいですよね。
美味しい。ご飯とネギと。
ネギ、ネギを切って納豆に入れて混ぜて、それをご飯の上に乗せて。
完璧。完璧朝ごはん。梅干し好き。
じゃあ梅干しのおにぎりも好きですか？
いつもコンビニで買う。梅干しおにぎり。好きなおにぎり。
そうですか。美味しいですよね。
美味しい美味しい。ケンさんも好き？梅干し？
僕も好きです。なんか僕は子供の頃梅干しがあんまり好きじゃなかったです。酸っぱい。僕は子供の頃梅干しがあんまり好きじゃなかったです。酸っぱいから。
酸っぱい、めっちゃ酸っぱい。
甘い梅干しもあるけど、でもなんか大人になって好きなものが変わりました。梅干しが好きになったとか。
納豆好き。
納豆はね、
とても好き。
子供の頃から結構好きでした。
マジで
ずっと好きです。
びっくり。
そうですね。スロバキアの有名な食べ物は何がありますか？
有名な食べ物、多分餃子とチーズみたいなこんな感じ。ピロヒ？ピロヒ？名前。多分餃子みたいなチーズポテト中。美味しいと思う。
そうですか。ちょっと待ってくださいよ。ちょっと今調べます。ちょっと待ってくださいよ。ちょっと今調べます。ピロヒ？なんか餃子みたいな。
いつも冗談をスロバキアの餃子。いつも冗談をスロバキアの餃子。
で中にチーズが入ってますね。
チーズとじゃがいも。
じゃがいも。
でも餃子一番美味しいと思う。
餃子が好きですか？
日本の餃子一番美味しい。
いいですね。いいな、美味しそう。食べてみたいです。
食べてみてください。
逆にあんまり好きじゃない食べ物ありますか？日本で。
日本で。多分ない。すべて好き。けど、ビーガンですから、魚食べない、肉食べない、卵食べない。だから、でも、全部ビーガン、日本のビーガンの料理好き。全部好き。日本の甘いもの、ほとんどいつもビーガン。日本の甘いもの、ほとんどいつもビーガン。餅。餅、団子。大福、あんこめっちゃ好き。
そうですか。
あんこ、みたらし団子。和菓子。すべて和菓子。みたらし団子。和菓子。すべて和菓子。いつも食べる。毎日食べる。たくさん食べる。
いいですね。和菓子美味しいですよ。僕抹茶を飲みながら和菓子を食べるのが好きです。
美味しそう。和菓子好き？
和菓子好きです。でも僕は和菓子を食べるときは抹茶を飲みたいです。
一緒に美味しい？
そう。和菓子は結構甘いですね。で抹茶はちょっと苦い。
ちょっと苦い。
맞아요. 일본 자주 갔어요. 제가 어떻게 아냐면 채원이가 저랑 같은
Sorry.
같은 샵이에요.
맞아요.
같은 샵인데 선생님들이 없어 맨날. 그래서 어디 갔어? 이러면 르세라핌. 그래 왜 이렇게 바빠? 없어 다음날도. 어디 갔어? 르세라핌. 제가 맨날 하는 말이 르세라핌은 안 쉬어? 채원이 어떡하냐 맨날 그러거든요.
근데 또 바쁠 때 또 해놔야지. 물 들어올 때도 저어야지.
너 저어야지 또. 그치.
근데 언니도 엄청 바쁘잖아요. 언니 뭔가 안 바쁜 척을 되게 잘하는 것 같아.
Language reactor it's automatic. It's automatically translated as long as the subtitles in whatever target language, and then the bottom is your mother tongue in general. So technically, it's automatic. So this, as long as the subtitle matches the language you want, it's automatic. You got it.
언니 뭔가 안 바쁜 척을 되게 잘하는 것 같아. 들어보면은 진짜 제일 바쁘거든요? 근데 진짜
언제 보는데 우리 정말 너 때문에 못 봐. 이러고.
자꾸 내 탓을 한다니까요? 자꾸 내 탓을 한다니까요? 언니도 바쁘면서
아니 근데 또 이제 나는 또 이렇게 해외로 막 왔다 갔다 하진 않으니까. 아니 근데 또 이제 나는 또 이렇게 해외로 막 왔다 갔다 하진 않으니까. 어때? 느낌 있지?
이 거품이 싹 올라오는 게 뭔가 이 거품이 싹 올라오는 게 뭔가 이 거품이 싹 올라오는 게 뭔가
짠! 뭐가 다른지 먹어봅시다.
감사합니다.
어때?
오, 맛있어요. 잘 탔어. 언니 완전 늘었나 봐요.
진빔이 맛있는 건가? 진빔이 맛있는 건가? 내가 잘 타는 건가?
진빔이 맛있긴 해요.
야! T 플러스 약간 광고 모델로서의 T 플러스 약간 광고 모델로서의 정신줄을 갑자기 가봤어. T 플러스 약간 광고 모델로서의 정신줄을 갑자기 가봤어.
찜빔 하이볼. 근데 너무 맛있다.
내가 만들면 좀 술 못 타시는 분들은 술 양도 줄이고 이렇게 농도를 조절할 수 있으니까 확실히 좋을 것 같아. 이렇게 농도를 조절할 수 있으니까 확실히 좋을 것 같아. 이렇게 농도를 조절할 수 있으니까 확실히 좋을 것 같아. 일단 마시셔요.
가보자고.
가보자고. 처음에 이런 거 할 때 너무 귀엽죠? 처음에 이런 거 할 때 너무 귀엽죠? 약간 그 어머니인 척 할 때.
어머니.
물 들어올 때 너 져야 된다고. 물 들어올 때 너 져야 된다고. 막 이런 거 할 때.
가보자고. 가보자고.
그래가지고 이번 앨범 준비하면서 어땠어?
이번 앨범 준비하면서 약간 안무가 좀 특이해. 약간 안무가 좀 특이해. 약간 안무가 좀 특이해.
오! 특이하더라?
봤어요? 다리를 이렇게 들어서 계속 버티는 동작이 있는데 다리를 이렇게 들어서 계속 버티는 동작이 있는데
그래서 나도 이런 거 신고 왔어. 일부러. 높은 거 안 신고 좀 편한 거 신고 왔어. 높은 거 안 신고 좀 편한 거 신고 왔어.
그게 근데 연습으로 안 돼. 그게 근데 연습으로 안 돼.
안 돼?
연습을 그렇게 했는데 아직도 이렇게
어떻게
중심을 못 잡아. 무대에서. 그러니까 그건 이미 이건 연습해도 안 되는 동작이다. 이건 연습해도 안 되는 동작이다. 그리고 포기하고 티 안 나는 방법을 찾았어. 티 안 나는 방법을 찾았어.
찾았어? 어떻게 해야 돼?
그러니까 이 발은 움직여도 되는. 그러니까 이 발은 움직여도 되는 거죠. 왜냐면 상체만 찍으면 티가 안 나니까. 풀샷이면은 그건 또 다시 고민을 해봐야 돼.
타이틀곡 소개 한 번만 해주세요.
타이틀곡 저희 타이틀곡 크레이지라는 곡인데요. 긴 설명 필요 없이 르세라핌과 함께 미쳐보자. 르세라핌과 함께 미쳐보자라는 뜻입니다. 긴 설명 필요 없이 르세라핌과 함께 미쳐보자라는 뜻입니다.
그럼 이번에 싱글이야?
싱글? 싱글 아니고 미니 앨범이에요.
싱글이야, 미니야?
미니 앨범이에요.
몇 곡 있어?
5곡?
힘들었겠는데 준비하는데?
근데 나쁘지 않았어요. 이미 수록곡을 막 공개한 곡도 있어가지고. 이미 수록곡을 막 공개한 곡도 있어가지고.
뭐야?
1-800 하는 번.
1-800 하는 번.
그런 곡인데 근데 이미 연습해놓은 곡도 있고 막 그래가지고 재밌게 했어요.
오랜만에 컴백하는 거 아니야? 생각보다?
근데 뭔가 항상 뒤에서 계속 뭐 하고 있으니까 스케줄을 그렇게 막 오랜만이 아닌 것 같은 느낌인 거예요.
맞아.
그래서 저는 일단 지금 컴백 아직 안 했는데 컴백한 기분이에요. 그러니까 이미 촬영한 게 너무 많아서.
그래, 약간 지금 이미 완성됐어. 이미 지금
그래요?
비주얼이
컴백하는 사람 같아요?
컴백하는 사람 같아.
다행이다.
왜 태연이 다이어트 해?
야식을 좀 안 먹거나.
근데 너 원래 많이 안 먹. 왜 태연이 다이어트 해?
야식을 좀 안 먹거나.
근데 너 원래 많이 안 먹잖아. 왜냐면 저희가 또 해미레체파라는 프로그램에서 만났잖아요. 채원이랑 예나
언니 진짜 안 먹어.
진짜 안 먹어.
입이 너무 짧아.
응. 리정이 진짜 많이 먹어.
좋아해. 먹는 거 진짜 좋아해.
1등이야. 리정이는 진짜 많이 먹잖아, 리정이가. 아니, 얼마 전에 그 영화 시사회를 했었는데 그때 해미리체파 멤버들이 다 와준 거예요. 그래서 채원이만 못 와가지고 저희가 막 사진 찍어가지고 야 우리 나 빼고 모였다 막 이러면서 사진 찍어서 보내줬거든요. 야 우리 나 빼고 모였다 막 이러면서 사진 찍어서 보내줬거든요. 그래서 저희는 이제 시즌2 얘기를 저희끼리 했거든요.
어떻게 하기로 했어요?
아, 비밀이에요. 이제 시즌2 얘기를 저희끼리 했거든요.
어떻게 하기로 했어요? 어떻게 하기로 했어요?
아, 비밀이에요. 아, 비밀이에요.
헐, 뭐야.
채원이는 너무 바쁠 것 같다고 얘나가.
아니에요. 저도 딱 시즌2가 생기면은 가야죠.
그거에 맞춰서 또 이제 스케줄 변동하실 수 있을까요?
그럼요. 그거 뭐 매니저님이 알아서 해요.
왜냐면 진짜 많은 분들이 해미리체파 시즌2를 기다리고 계신단 말이에요.
진짜 너무 알고 저도 너무 하고 싶어요.
사실 저희들은 진짜 너무 하고 싶어.
진짜 너무 하고 싶어.
진짜 너무 하고 싶어. 만날 때마다 이제 그때도 친구들이 나한테 언니 근데 우리 시즌2 언제예요? 이래.
진짜 만날 때마다 그래요.
나도 몰라. 아마 채원이가 바빠서 안 되지 않을까? 난 채원이 핑계 대고. 아마 채원이가 바빠서 안 되지 않을까? 난 채원이 핑계 대고.
진짜 근데 너무 재밌었어.
진짜
재밌었어.
너가 얘기해봐.
제가요? 제가 말하면 돼요?
너가 제일 스타잖아.
뭔 소리야?
너랑 리샤랑 가가지고 이제. 왜냐면 또 이제 막내 애들이 얘기를 해야 또 좀 뭔지 알죠? 시즌2 언제예요? 이러면 뭐 해주고 싶어요 막 이렇게 하면서 탁탁탁 되지 않을까요?
그래.
뭐 해주고 싶어요 막 이렇게 하면서 탁탁탁 되지 않을까요?
그래.
내가 얘기하면 약간 언제예요? 막 이렇게 되면 약간 불만 많은 사람 같다. 근데 미연이네 집 왔을 때도 채원이만 못 왔지 않았냐? 채원이 때문에 못하나?
아니야.
저희가 이게 약간 밈처럼 채원 몰이로 시즌2에서 쟤는 뭐 촬영이가 오는 거 아니야? 이러면서
맞아. 체릴 거 맞춰야 되니까.
그럴 때마다 채원이 반응이 너무 귀여워가지고 놀리게 돼 자꾸. 근데 약간 채원이가 그런 게 있어. 팀에서 리더고 카리스마 이런 느낌으로 있다가 우리랑 있으면 뽀짝뽀짝하단 말이에요. 그거를 되게 놀리고 싶은 게 있어가지고 그거를 되게 놀리고 싶은 게 있어가지고 그 일화가 있어요. 제가 채원이가 스타트였어. 채원이가 스타트였어. 김채원 마이크 아웃.
진짜 크게 당한 게 있어요.
채원아, 마이크 뺄 때는 마이크 아웃을 해드려야 돼. 마이크 아웃을 해드려야 돼. 그 음악 기사님이 당황하지 않으셔. 네. 김채원 마이크 아웃.
마이크 아웃 했어? 아니요. 채원 마이크 아웃. 채원 마이크 아웃.
아니 근데 그거를 진짜 진지하게 말했어. 난 진짜인 줄 알았지. 내가 이때까지 그러면 뭘 잘못했구나. 마이크 아웃을 안 했었구나. 이때까지 잘못했어.
죄송하다.
너무 죄송하다.
그거 진짜 해야 돼.
이제 안 믿어요.
여기서 진짜 해야 돼. 룰이야.
끄덕끄덕 하시지 마세요. 저 알아요 이제.
채원이가 많이 컸네. 시즌2 하실 거예요?
하죠.
합시다. 채원이랑 저랑 닮았대요.
진짜 많이 들었어요.
진짜 많이 들었지?
해외집 할 때부터.
그 전에는 안 들었어?
그 전에는 안 들었어.
진짜?
들었어요 언니?
아니? 그냥 혹시 넌 들었을 수도 있으니까. 그냥 혹시 넌 들었을 수도 있으니까.
그래 좀 하면서 들었어요 많이.
맞아. 내가 여기서 단발을 떡 자른다고 생각하면 더 내 맞지. 내가 여기서 단발을 떡 자른다고 생각하면 더 내 맞지. 내가 여기서 단발을 떡 자른다고 생각하면 더 내 맞지. 근데 진짜 너무 신기했던 게 나도 이거 입었었다? 근데 진짜 너무 신기했던 게 나도 이거 입었었다? 이거 피팅해봤었다? 이거 이번에 무슨 옷이야? 근데 진짜 너무 신기했던 게 나도 이거 입었었다? 이거 피팅해봤었다? 이거 피팅해봤었다? 이거 이번에 무슨 옷이야? 이거 이번에 무슨 옷이야? 이거 어떻게 입어? 이랬는데 채원이가 입었는데 너무 예쁜 거예요. 그래서 채원이가 입었는데 너무 예쁜 거예요. 그래서 이거 이런 옷이구나. 이랬는데 이거 이런 옷이구나. 이랬는데 내가 이거 보여줄게. 진짜 이상했어. 약간 어깨가 갑자기 너무 넓어 보이는 거예요. 어깨가 갑자기 너무 넓어 보이는 거예요. 어깨가 갑자기 너무 넓어 보이는 거예요.
어깨가 너무 잘 보이긴 한다. 갑자기 부끄러워.
갑자기 좀 넓어진 것 같기도 하고.
어깨.
갑자기 좀 넓어진 것 같기도 하고.
어깨 힘주기 갑자기.
이번 활동이 끝나면 앞으로 예정돼 있는 이번 활동이 끝나면 앞으로 예정돼 있는 활동은 어떤 게 있어? 이번 활동이 끝나면 앞으로 예정돼 있는 활동은 어떤 게 있어?
저희 이제 활동 끝나면 저희 첫 휴가를 받았어요. 2년간의 첫 휴가를 받았어요. 2년간의 첫 휴가를 받았어요.
얼마나?
8일.
꽤 긴데? 8일?
저 그거
Bruh. Hi, Chai. I gotta get a screenshot of this. That's funny.
처음만 진짜 생각하면서
뭐 할 거야?
일단 가족 여행도 처음 가봐가지고 가족 여행을 갔다 올 예정이에요. 가족 여행을 갔다 올 예정이에요.
처음으로 가는 거니까 너무 의미 있다. 그럼 어떻게 보낼까? 8일을 꽉 채워서 가족 여행을 가지 않을까?
이렇게 오래 쉬어본 적이 너무
꽉 채워서 가족 여행을 가지 않을까?
이렇게 오래 쉬어본 적이 너무 처음이어가지고
꽉 채워서 가족 여행을 가지 않을까?
이렇게 오래 쉬어본 적이 너무 처음이어가지고 뭘 해야 될지 모르겠어요 진짜 사실.
계획을 짜보자. 너 물론 계획을 안 짜는 성격이긴 하지만 가족 여행을 가. 그래 한 3박 4일?
3박 4일 가.
나머지 4일은 이제
나머지 4일은
혼자 있는 시간이 필요할 거 아니야?
맞아요. 혼자 있는 시간 필요해요.
혼자 있는 시간이 필요할 거 아니야?
맞아요. 혼자 있는 시간 필요해요. 집에서 혼자 하루 종일 자고 먹고 집에서 혼자 하루 종일 자고 먹고 보고 할 예정이에요.
집에 혼자 있을 수 있어?
네.
가족들은?
아 그러네요.
가족들은?
아 그러네요. 숙소에 근데 방이 있으니까. 숙소에 근데 방이 있으니까.
숙소에 있는다고? 휴가 때? 너무 뭐랄까 쉬는 기분이 안 나지 않나?
그래요? 저 숙소 너무 편한데?
그럼 8일
그래요? 저 숙소 너무 편한데?
그럼 8일 굳이 안 받아도 되는 거 아니야?
그래요? 저 숙소 너무 편한데?
그럼 8일 굳이 안 받아도 되는 거 아니야?
아니 근데 또 숙소에도 얼마 있지 못하니까 스케줄 할 때는 잠만 자고.
근데 뭔지는 알 것 같아.
잠만 자고.
근데 뭔지는 알 것 같아. 왜냐면은 다른 아이돌 친구들 나왔을 때도 내가 충격받았던 말이 숙소에서 뭐해요? 이랬는데 다른 아이돌 친구들 나왔을 때도 내가 충격받았던 말이 왜냐면은 다른 아이돌 친구들 나왔을 때도 내가 충격받았던 말이 숙소에서 뭐해요? 이랬는데 숙소에서 뭐해요? 이랬는데 저희 숙소에서 샤워만 해요 이러는 거야. 저희 숙소에서 샤워만 해요 이러는 거야.
샤워만 한다고?
그냥 샤워하고 잠자다가 나오는 곳이
샤워만 한다고?
그냥 샤워하고 잠자다가 나오는 곳이 숙소예요 이런 말을 딱 들었는데 내가 너무 약간 안쓰러운 마음이 드는 거야. 근데 그때는 모른다? 하고 있을 때니까 이제 한 5, 6년 지나면 이제 한 5, 6년 지나면 아프면 안 돼.
진짜 아프지 않으려고 노력 많이 해요. 조금만 아프면 링거 바로 맞고 조금만 아프면 링거 바로 맞고
이렇게 생겼냐 이렇게 동그랗게 그죠? 이렇게 누르고 싶죠? 그죠? 이렇게 누르고 싶죠? 뿌시고 싶어 이렇게 채원이 보면은.
그래서 저 귀여운 멤버들이 있거든요 저희 팀에. 저 포함. 지아랑 은채랑 저랑 만두즈라고 많이 불러요. 만두즈가 무슨 뜻인지 알아요? 뭐야?
Hey, Orange, how you doing today? Glad to have you here.
만두가 너무 귀여워서 패고 싶을 때.
멤버들을 그때 제가 콘서트 때 처음 봤어요.
맞아.
전설의 도도도도.
야나 너 도도도. 그날 왔구나.
내가 그날 갔어. 그 후기를 조금 풀어달라는 거야. 팬분들이. 사실 나는
못 들었죠.
I've been living in Japan for over 3 years now, but does that mean my Japanese is perfect? And since this video is about Japanese, I understand you guys probably want to see the proof. And since I'm a nerd,
日本で働いてもうすぐ3年経つ。でもそれで僕の日本語が完璧ってこと？そんなわけないでしょう。でもちょっと話するだけでいろんなチャンスをもらったのは確か。でもさ、俺が日本語を勉強しようと思った理由はサラリーマンになるためじゃなかったんだよね。敬語を完璧に話せるようになるわけでもなかった。誰かを感心させるためでもなかった。俺の目標はめっちゃシンプルだった。まあ正直に言えば人幕なしでアニメを見たかったんだけ。リアルな友達を作りたかった。ちょっと恋愛とかももしかしたらね。日本で日本語でどうやったら自分らしく生きるのか、その答えを今も探している。
Welcome, guys. I know it's been a long time for anybody who tuned into my video, Day in the Life of a Salaryman, but I'm back and I'm really excited to be explaining the Japanese learner journey because there's really two paths, the blue pill and the red pill. I want to talk today about the red pill. What is the alternative way? We all know, like, oh, just go to a country and just immerse in it and we'll pick it up. But how do you actually do that with a semi-structured approach that can guarantee you results? There was someone who learned Japanese and got to the highest level of proficiency on the testing scale that most foreigners take in 1.5 years. And I know people that lived in Japan for years who never get to this level. This method works, and the guy never went to class for Japanese, and he did it through watching anime. That is red pill if I've ever heard of anything. You can actually learn a language by doing something that you like and that you're already doing. For some of you who watch anime, bro, lock in. This is a golden opportunity. I'm not saying that this works for everyone, but for some people who are like me, this worked for me. It is working for me, and I'm continuing to do it. And I hope that this can give you some value. So stay tuned, and let's get to the sauce. I have a flashcard from Jujutsu Kaisen. This is from like 2 years ago.
肉体が一新されれば、術式効果も振り出しに戻る。
振り出しに戻る。
振り出し。
So 肉体が一新されれば. You hear how, and when you look at the screen, that's all blue. That's when the pitch accent stays exactly the same. Like you're not going up and down in pitch. This is how you work on your pronunciation just by watching anime. And that's why you want to watch native content. You don't want to learn from like your peers in class because you can even pick up their accents sometimes. And this is why I love this, because also, as you can see, it's showing me the exact scene in Jujutsu Kaisen. So when you're watching an anime and you're going through the episodes and you're learning as you go, you can pretty much, it's almost like you're rewatching the anime. So as you guys can imagine, this is an incredibly useful tool. And if you do this continuously, you will get to a point to where it becomes very easy and you don't have to go to school, and you can come up with your own routine for learning Japanese, and it's very customized to what you're watching. I want to make a point here that most of us don't learn language to make a good grade on a test, even though that feels good. And that's how we are trained in the system. If we score well and if we study, we've been trained to chase that dopamine. But I would argue that most people just want to learn language so they can be themselves around other people that speak that language. And that's the real goal here. Can you be yourself and can you connect with people? Let's describe what this might look like. The romantic phase. You're watching Demon Slayer, or you're playing Persona 5. You hear in Japanese and you're like, fuck, you know what? I'm going to become fluent in Japanese and I'm going to start studying Japanese. So when I take my trip, I can talk to the locals. Maybe I can find me a waifu. Or I can watch these animes with no subtitles. And then you find yourself in what I like to call the app addiction phase. They download every single app: Tandem, Duolingo, Pimsleur, italki, HelloTalk, even robotic girlfriend AI chat apps. Or we have the classroom grind. They learn Kore wa pin desu and watashi no namae wa blank desu a million times. They memorize every single conjugation chart. But then when they're at a bar and they finally meet someone who can speak Japanese, your brain just shuts down and you're like, no, sumimasen. After all of this, step 4, you hit kanji hell. They hit the wall. Why does this character have 5 different readings, and one mean God and one means paper? You know, they try to brute force 2,000 kanji through wani kanji or whatever method. Essentially, this person's learning Japanese like it's math, but language is not math. And that's why I think most people burn out in learning Japanese, because they try to treat something like it's math when it's not. This is what I call the blue pill path. At the end of the day, the blue pill method is what's gradable, it's repeatable, but it still leaves you feeling like you're lacking the ability to speak Japanese. And that's what always happened to me. I just couldn't focus in classes. It was so hard to translate that into real life. And I was just never good at the homework. So I knew that there was another method, and that's what I like to call the red pill method. And there are people who've done this who never stepped foot in Japan and are fluent in Japanese. And it's insane. And it's through these 3 things that I like to talk about, which is watch content.
I don't even know if the audio is overpowering, but yeah, good to see you. Not slacking. Hey man, just doing it every day. The only difference is there's a camera on. So it's been like this for the last 4 years. I sit in this chair, study for 4 years. Now there's just a camera on. But welcome to the grind.
And that native language made for native speakers, have a tool that makes it easy for you to understand that content, and then you create the material to study that content, and you repeat that over and over again, and that will get you to a very good understanding of that language.
We're in the middle near Tokyo Station. I wanted to show you how easy it is to study Japanese on the go. So I just want to show you, like, when I'm on the go in Tokyo, I can do this at any place. And let's go, and I'll just show you how I do it. So I just want to show you guys how easy this is. So I press the card, and I can hear it. As you can see on the screen, I'm getting a scene from Jujutsu Kaisen, and it's literally breaking down the word, right? So now I'm learning words that I watched in a native context, which is through anime, Jujutsu Kaisen. Shout out to the Go anime. I love that anime, and I'm learning from it.
One thing that I do want to warn of is, like, try to do an anime that's within kind of your limits. So you take the beginner's Japanese course and you're a beginner. Try to watch an anime show that's interesting to you. Don't watch like a kid show, because if you're not interested, it feels like work again. You want to try to watch something that you're actually interested in. From there, you then want to try to take that material and focus on the same show, because those words that you just studied will most likely reappear in that show, and it gives you the quickest path to understanding that language quicker, right? So if you go from, like, Jujutsu Kaisen is very hard in terms of Japanese because of all the spells, the different sort of things. It's high level Japanese. So if you can start with Dragon Ball Z, Or if you really feel compelled to just watch whatever show, do that. But I would say try to stick out like watching the same show like 1 to 2 months, right? If you burn through it, go to the next, cool. But you want to keep focusing and giving yourself a chance to rehear that audio in the native environment, and that's going to help it stick more.
So let's do one more card so you guys can see. Saksen janai desu ka? So ready? This is Saksen janai desu ka? So at this time I did not know that word, right? And that means like, was that not his strategy the whole time, right? This is from an anime called Terrace House. So basically what I'm trying to show you is that Migaku makes it to where you can learn Japanese words, make them into sentences, and then listen to that audio and see the card. So if you're studying and the things are fresh, it's almost like you're watching the show again based on sentences that you don't know. So that's why you want to study something fresh and you want to make the cards yourself. You don't want to make cards that someone already made for you. You can see on the screen that they have their academy. I never took their academy because I already knew a certain amount of Japanese and I did my own study in the past. But if you want to get started and you're a beginner, they have their academy. So you can literally have a comprehensive start from 0 to 1. This app can single-handedly do everything that the classrooms teach you, and it can go further because you can start making flashcards out of native content. And then they also have the Kanji Academy where you can learn the basics of kanji, which you don't want to skip. Like we said, and like I'm going to say over and over again, making things where you're reducing the friction for you doing the action that you need to do is one of the most important keys in you learning. Make it very simple, and that's how you can get further than most people. It's not only that this method is, I believe, more efficient, but it's also more effective because it's something that you can do consistently. And someone who's driven versus someone who's talented is always going to win, because if you're driven and you're consistent, you're going to get further along.
The final thing is an SRS. So it means space repetition system. So it means it literally is reintroducing concepts to you in a space repetition. So right when the brain forgets something, it reintroduces it. That is one of the best ways you can learn something. Instead of just continuously relearning words that you already know, you're wasting time. That's why Enki and using Migaku is such a great system, because it's algorithmically trained to introduce you the new words and to remind you of the new words so you don't forget them. And you're learning them with sentences by native speakers from anime and content that you choose, and it's all done with you pressing a button. Once you know the basic grammar and once you know basic vocabs and how to read. When you know how to read the characters, hiragana and katakana, and then you learn a little bit about the grammar, you just need to do that cycle over and over and over again.
问一下啊，我反正英文 YouTube 看韩文，因为我觉得如果我分清自己，我觉得我的这个方法是更好的，对，因为这个是我个人的方法，对，因为如果 OK，我学词汇量的时候，我就用我的眼睛，但是因为我不用打手话，因为如果我看这个这个字，然后我就看这个定义是啥，然后我就可以直接翻译，所以然后我觉得是够了。但是因为我不用我的耳朵，所以这个是够了。对，等一会儿。 另外，请问你怎么处置放黄字和蓝色单词？我看你操作很快。OK， 我告诉你，因为汉语的话，一般有一个很多不同的姿势，但是绝大部分的词汇量是太简单。对，因为我的条件就是，如果我看过一个我已经学过了的词，但是有一个不同的姿势，我觉得我会把这个词然后成为一个unknown 的，而是只过了的词。OK， 黄色的话，OK， 肯定如果是你第一次看过这个的蓝色的字之后，这个是我肯定你必须反应吧？对，这个是一个阶段，但是这从黄色到known 是个不同的，黄色和蓝色字，对，是从蓝色到黄色，因为绝大部分的时间 ，OK， 如果你看过这个词，然后如果你知道这个是什么意思。如果你知道这个意思，然后你可以成为一个知过了的词，但是如果你不知道这个词，就成为一个黄色，然后你可以调整那个程度的黄色的，对，是从3度到1度到3度，对，因为我从来没有一个词度，或是这个死度是怎么说的？但是我不知道，如果我给一个很好的答案，对，或是如果你可以给我个细节的问题，还可以的。对，因为韩语的话，如果你在一个高级的水平，绝大部分的词汇量会在发生了，所以是太容易在学绝大部分的词，对。如果有另外的问题，可以直接问我。
I'm not the David Goggins of learning Japanese. There's so many people out there. But if you want to learn how to be yourself and how to get to a place that's better than where you're at, and you don't have to take classes, this is definitely the answer. Language learning has never been easier, and it's never actually been better because it's so accessible.
那个回复可以吗？因为其实我觉得是还行的，但是如果是有用的，还可以啊。
When runners want to start getting good at running, some people do things where they literally will have their running clothes on when they sleep. So they wake up, all they have to do is put on their shoes, grab the water bottle that's in the fridge and start running, because you want to reduce the friction to get to the activity that will bring you the most results, right? These tools will reduce the friction significantly. When I lost everything due to COVID and had to leave Japan, I could no longer do my method of learning Japanese. Migaku really helped me because it allowed me to make flashcards through Enki quickly and seamlessly. So let's talk a little bit about Migaku. Learning a language, like we talked about, is boring, flashcard, grammar drills, but not anymore, because through Migaku, it's completely changed how I approach Japanese, because Migaku lets you take any content and turn it into a studyable material. Anime, YouTube, Netflix, and you'll be able to hear the line of audio of what that person says. And here's what I'd recommend for an absolute busy person who does not feel like they have time. Watch 30 minutes of anime per day, just one episode. Treat it as your work. Yes, for 1 to 2 years, you get to treat watching anime as your work. Then what I want you to do, just press the buttons using Migaku. Using a tool. If you find another one, press the cards that you don't know, choose 10 to 20, okay? Do that, have it make your cards, then study the cards in the same day. So 30 minutes to an hour a day studying Japanese, okay? But 30 minutes is you're just watching the anime. And I want you to eventually, when you get good enough, watch the anime in Japanese with Japanese subtitles. Doing this alone, you will begin to outpace 90% of classroom learners if you can be consistent. And you can do 10 to 20 cards a day. It's not going to be immediate and it's not going to be as soon as them, but eventually you will, because I've seen it happen. I've seen people burn out. I've seen people who live in Japan, and you will end up speaking better Japanese than them. I promise you. Anyways, that's my challenge to you. And if you do it, send me a message later. Use this as an excuse to start. Send me a message when you start and when you're.
So I've made a bunch of videos now talking about immersion and how you can use exposure to learn languages in a more natural way than traditional methods, which often boils down to just memorize this verb table. Most people seem to understand the premise of this. Like, if you expose yourself to thousands of hours of a language, then it's hard to imagine that you wouldn't learn it. But even though the idea itself makes sense, I get a lot of questions specifically about the beginning stage of immersion learning, and one of the most common things that I get comments about is the process of trying to immerse when your comprehension is literally zero. A lot of people can't seem to get behind the idea that blindly consuming a language when you know basically nothing could actually be beneficial, and it's an understandable concern to have considering just how meaningless it can feel when you're essentially just letting gibberish flood through your ears and hoping to maybe catch a word here and there, and even then you still have zero clue what's even being talked about. Being a complete beginner in a language and trying to just immerse isn't as easy of something to do as I and many other people advocating for immersion methods probably make it seem, and based on the comments I receive asking about it, there seems to be a lot of people stuck wondering how to actually get their feet off the ground and break the feeling of, I'm never going to understand any of this, this is pointless. Also, I'm probably going to cover some stuff that I've already talked about sporadically in other videos, so sorry if I sound like a broken record. But judging by a poll I did asking people what stage they're at, and based on a lot of the comments I get, there seems to be a lot of beginners that are stuck on what to do in the beginning, so I really felt like I needed to make a video like this, even if some of it feels a little bit obvious or I've talked about it before. So to just quickly explain the theory behind immersion learning in the most bare bones way possible, the idea is that contrary to the more traditional methods which involve memorizing grammar from a textbook or consciously learning everything in a class, you're sort of trying to replicate the process that you used to learn your first language with, which everyone should know very well was not using a textbook, but just by being exposed to it so much that you couldn't not understand it even if you tried. Basically, the main point is just to hammer your brain with so much of the target language that you just start to automatically understand messages and build an unconscious and intuitive understanding that isn't backed by translations from your native language. Now, just because we're trying to replicate the process of acquiring a first language doesn't mean that you're going to be able to perfectly do it, because adults and children's brains are just different. But the idea is that you can replicate the same process to a large extent, and the end result is that you're going to be coming away with a more nuanced and native-like understanding of your target language in the long run. I probably don't even have to explain this, because if you really logically think about it, then it makes perfect sense that you wouldn't get good at a language if you didn't have a lot of exposure to it. I think one of the most misunderstood things about the immersion method is, ironically, its relationship with traditional learning, and it's often talked about in a way that makes the two methods seem very binary in nature, and I'm also guilty of this. But in reality, it's more like a spectrum, and you need to think big picture. So traditional learning, meaning a study method where you rely heavily on consciously trying to memorize the rules of a language like it's a math problem, is, in my opinion, inferior to a method where you spend a lot of time learning from organic content and just sort of let yourself absorb it naturally. But it's not like you can't do both at the same time, and I would argue that it's actually even better to do so to a certain extent. Even though the point of an immersion method is to replicate first language acquisition as much as possible, honestly, you can and should utilize your adult brain to study things and to consciously learn stuff that's going to assist you in unconscious learning. But the important thing is that you treat studying like a supplement and exposure as the main point, and if you do prefer to study things like grammar, then don't get too caught up in trying to understand it perfectly through just memorizing the rules. I think a lot of this confusion comes from a claim I've made in a previous video, which I basically just said you don't have to study at all to learn a language, and I get comments a lot saying things like, wait a minute, hold on. How am I supposed to understand not a single word and eventually just understand everything by just listening without doing doing any study? So first we have to understand how learning through exposure actually works, which basically just happens when you understand the meaning of something that you previously wouldn't have understood, because now you have context clues that allow you to inference what something means. This can be anything from visual clues or mannerisms to looking up something in the dictionary or even just remembering something that you studied earlier. When you learn something through comprehensible input, you're going to sort of have this aha moment and it's going to click. And by continuing to contact the language and experiencing thousands of these little aha moments, you're going to start building up a more intuitive understanding and it's going to start feeling like how your native language sounds when you listen to it. Not in the way that you're going to understand as much or as well as your native language, but in the way that when you hear something that you do understand, it's going to feel effortless. To give a sort of visual analogy, it's sort of like doing a jigsaw puzzle because at first you don't really understand where anything goes, and trying to understand where a singular piece goes without help from the other pieces is almost impossible. But if you slowly add to what you already have using the already completed portions as clues, it's suddenly really easy to keep stacking pieces on until you're able to start seeing a more complete picture. If you understand literally nothing, you're never going to run into any situations where you start to intuit things that you previously wouldn't have understood, so of course you're not going to learn anything from white noising a foreign language. So when I say that you can learn without studying, it doesn't really mean that you can just white noise a language and magically become able to understand it. You need a way to make the input that you're getting comprehensible, whether that be by studying or by other means. Using consciously learned knowledge as a tool to make input comprehensible is a really powerful strategy, and it's the reason why I never stop talking about how good using Anki is for learning tons of words really fast. Building a strong foundation in a language by using a textbook, class, even an app isn't actually a bad thing as long as you aren't using it as a means to an end, but rather as a stepping stone that helps you better understand authentic language, which is where your unconscious learning is going to actually happen. Conscious learning does not have to come from sitting down with a conjugation table and beating your head against the wall until you've memorized every rule, which is why I make an effort to tell people that studying in the traditional sense of the word is pretty much entirely optional, and I know this because that's how I learned Japanese. Using consciously learned knowledge to help with your understanding can be something as simple as looking up a word or a grammatical structure that you don't know on the spot, taking a mental note, and then just continuing with whatever you were doing. Okay, Trenton, so you said you were going to talk about what to do as a beginner, and so far you've just ranted for 5 minutes about how immersion works and how you technically don't need to study, which is something you've already talked about 12 million times. Can you just get to the point, bro? Okay, honestly, fair enough. I'm basically beating a dead horse at this point. So I'm going to be honest, the main reason why so many people fail to jump straight into immersing themselves is because the objective experience of being a complete beginner sort of just sucks. Like, why spend hours upon hours a day watching YouTube or anime in Japanese that you can't understand yet when you could just do something like Duolingo and actually see your EXP level go up? Unless you're really sold on the idea, it's sort of hard to actually feel like you're making any meaningful steps in the right direction, and you might even feel like you're just wasting time. Yeah, some people are so motivated and driven by their desire to literally become Japanese that they don't have this problem, but some people are TikTok brains like me and have to constantly remind themselves, no, 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 I swear it's actually working. Yeah, I know it's easy to just say, no, bro, don't give up. I promise it gets easier. But honestly, one of the most important things that you're going to need if you're going to use an immersion method to learn a language is to just have some level of blind faith that it will actually work. Learning a language takes a long time, and even if you trust the process because you've logically thought about it, if you're still at the point where your results aren't so crystal clear yet, then you're probably going to have some moments where you're like, man, I don't know about this, and wonder if you're even doing the right thing, which is completely normal, but deep down you need to actually believe that it's going to work. When you start seeing the actual results for yourself, this becomes less of a problem because you know from firsthand experience that it's going to work, but for that first 6 months when you really feel
Today, we're going to talk about learning kanji and how I feel like there's a just way easier, less stressful way that you can do it. And it's how I do it. And I didn't come up with this epiphany of how to do this until about 2023 or 22 or something like that. I had an epiphany. And ever since then, I've been learning new vocabulary, fairly easy. It really hasn't been stressful. I don't stress about learning every single day. I just learn as it comes, and when it sticks, it sticks, and I just have fun when it comes to learning Japanese, right? Kanji is so stressful. If you guys know, you learn hiragana and katakana, which is like hard at first, but that's way easy then you get to kanji, which is like the final boss of learning Japanese, right? Well, today I'm going to teach you how I learn kanji and how I think this is honestly the best way. So here's a list of the 3,002 most common kanji that's going to be used in everyday life Japanese. And when I was learning Japanese, when I started out, back in 2019, I started doing a lot of Anki, and I was doing something called RTK, which is called Remembering the Kanji. And it's actually a great resource. It's this like purple book. It's really awesome. It's a great resource for learning the names of kanji, which learning the names of kanji, individually. I'm not saying it's not going to be helpful, but it really, if you want to read Japanese, it doesn't really do a whole lot for you. It doesn't. And I'll explain why. So yeah, RTK taught me most of these. It was actually back in the day, it was actually the 2000 and something most common kanji, but I guess now there's lists of 3,000. Either way, I went through a whole Anki deck of calling out kanji, just basically just saying, oh, okay, this kanji is sun or now or whatever it is, right? But I didn't really understand what I was doing all of this. I wasted a lot of time and I didn't realize that there's an issue with this. And the issue is that being able to name what a kanji is, in English, let's say, that does not explain how you read a kanji, which is the whole point of learning kanji, right? You're learning kanji because you want to read Japanese, right? But then if you know what a kanji is called, it's like, there's multiple readings to kanji, and this is the most confusing part. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, if you're new to kanji, this is going to sound very confusing. But anyway, here's an example. So here's the kanji for now, right? And it's ima. So when it's by itself, it's always going to be ima. And this is a very common word, right? If you're going to learn this word really early on. But actually, there's 3 different meanings for ima alone, right? And it's this thing called kunyomi and onyomi. Now, instead of me explaining the differences of what's onyomi and konyomi or whatever, kunyomi, I'm not even saying it right. That's how much I don't care about it. Forget it. Just forget that crap, okay? Just know that there's multiple readings depending on if a kanji is next to another one, right? Here's what happens when I put the sun kanji next to now. It now transforms into kyo. So wait, this is kon, and now this is kyo. Well, okay, what if I put morning, all right? So that you would think you would know how to read that, but no, it's actually keisa. Keisa. And now if I put year next to ima, it now becomes kotoshi. So this is very confusing. What are we doing here? Also, when I was learning Japanese, and I explained this in my video, I was using resources like Wanikani. And I believe at the time, I don't know if they changed it or whatever, but Wanikani, even though they were teaching the vocabulary, which was great, by the way, they were also teaching you to memorize unyomi and konyomi, the different readings of the multiple readings of the single kanjis. I think they changed it. I don't remember. It's been a while, but a logical person would come up to the conclusion that yes, it would be beneficial to learn all the readings for every single kanji individually. So learn not only the readings, but also learn all the kunyomi and onyomi meetings, right? Well, if you did that, you would never learn anything, because that would take way too long, and you would be so confused. Just don't do it. It's bad. So what do you do instead? Well, if you're like me, you read a lot. That's what I think you should do. If you want to get good at reading Japanese, if you want to get good at acquiring vocabulary, read as much Japanese as you possibly can. And instead of learning kanji individually, you learn them as you come across the words. So this way, you're not learning the multiple readings, and getting really confused. You're learning that kyo simply means kyo. Whether you're using Anki or reading or whatever, you're just going to learn that kyo means kyo. You're going to learn that keisa means keisa. You're going to learn that kotoshi means kotoshi. So really, you don't even need to do RTK, right? Because I haven't done any individual kanji study since 2020, 2 or 23. I haven't gone out of my way to do individual kanji study at all, but yet still I'm acquiring vocabulary just fine, at a perfectly fine normal rate, just by simply reading. I just read and read and read. That's really what I do. But you might be saying to yourself, well, I understand nothing. How do I start? Well, I personally prefer reading. So if you like the reading route, I highly recommend this website called Todoku Supporters. And what this website is, it has a lot of like kids books or like, you know, short stories with easy Japanese, and it tells you how to read it and everything. And there's like multiple levels. I actually use this website. This was after I did some Anki, obviously, that did give me a nice base. But once I realized, oh, I wanted to get into reading, I started using.
Bonjour et bienvenue sur Preply. Je m'appelle Ted et je suis ravi de vous rencontrer. Mon objectif sera de vous accompagner dans votre apprentissage de la langue française, que vous souhaitiez améliorer vos compétences académiques, professionnelles ou personnelles. Avec plus de 5 ans d'expérience. Bonjour et bienvenue sur Preply. Je m'appelle Ted et je suis ravi de vous rencontrer. Mon objectif sera de vous accompagner dans votre apprentissage de la langue française, que vous souhaitiez améliorer vos compétences académiques, professionnelles ou personnelles. Avec plus de 5 ans d'expérience dans l'enseignement de la langue française, j'adapte ma méthode à chaque étudiant. J'analyse avec précision votre niveau de langue, nous définissons vos objectifs et nous élaborons un planning selon vos disponibilités. Pour ceux-là qui veulent également préparer des examens de français selon vos disponibilités. Et nous élaborons un planning selon vos disponibilités. Pour ceux-là qui veulent également préparer des examens de français tels que le TCF, le DALF, le DELF, nous avons un programme spécifique que nous allons adapter pour vous. Aussi, nous avons du matériel audiovisuel, des contenus audio, des contenus visuels pour travailler et la compréhension écrite, la compréhension orale, la production écrite et la production orale. Alors que vous souhaitiez apprendre le français juste pour le plaisir, pour les affaires ou alors de manière scolaire, vous êtes à la bonne adresse sur Preply. Alors, pour commencer notre aventure du français ensemble, n'hésitez plus dès aujourd'hui.
This website right here, and I would just read as many of these little like short stories, like you could just click them, right? And they are very, very simple. They have pictures too, and pictures are really great for helping you acquire like vocabulary as well, because it's another way to put context to things. So this is like very easy, right? Sumimasen. I actually think I read this. I think I remember reading this possibly. What does it say? Miki-san wa bus de kaisha ni ikimasu. So yeah, this is very, very simple. I think a lot of them, yeah, they even have audio as well. So
すみません。ミキさんはバスで会社に行きます。
in my journey personally, I did some frequency lists on Anki, with some of the most common words. And so I did have a good base, but I realized like whenever I would go to read something in Japanese, I would struggle really hard. So I found this website and I just like started reading as many of these little short stories as I possibly could. And I found that they were just really easy to comprehend, right? And there's just tons of levels. So I just personally found out like, cause like there's even videos as well. There's videos like audio. So it was very, very comprehensible. And that's what you want to try to go for, right? Like, you know, if you think about the way little kids learn Japanese, right? They don't start by learning literature papers and scientific stuff. They read stuff like this. And I understand that this might not be like interesting for everyone, but for me, just learning, you know, new words and actually like feeling like I read something in actual Japanese was a great accomplishment for me. And this was a good bridge for me to jump into actual like content that I'd be more interested in. And so I just felt like this was a great website that really helped me prepare to read more stuff. And it gave me the confidence I feel like I did once I started like really comprehending a lot of this. And then so what I did next after reading a bunch of these on this website, I decided to read what a lot of people online were saying is one of the most easiest visual novels in Japanese. So I had previously been a fan of like visual novels in English. You know, I read them in English, but I thought, hey, you know, I started using LingQ, you know, because it's mostly based on reading. And I was like, if this is actually going to work, I wanted to test it with something. So I decided to read a very simple visual novel. It was this really stupid visual novel called Hanahira. And it's like a meme in the language learning community where it's like super, super easy, but it's like not exactly interesting. The story itself is not super gripping or anything like that. And it's like, you know, it's kind of seen as like cringy or whatever, but I made it a challenge and I read that visual novel on LingQ. So going from this website, Todoku Readers, to going to that, visual novel, I still felt like was a pretty big jump and I didn't understand a lot of what I was reading, but something magical happened to me. So when I got to the end of that visual novel, which probably took me around like a month, I read it on Link. And when I finally got to the end of it, I realized, oh my God, I'm actually remembering a lot of the words that I'm reading, even if I don't like remember the kanji that's involved with them. Like I'll just remember the words when I see them. Like that's essentially the simplest way that I can explain to you what happened. Like I just realized that, like actually seeing words in different contexts over and over again is a great way to learn vocabulary. And that's when I first started learning it. So I just kept doing that over and over again on Link. I just kept reading and listening, reading and listening and reading and listening. And the cool thing about visual novels I found out is that they're fully voiced. You can control how fast they are. So I can sit there on a line and read as much as I want and then go to the next line whenever I'm ready. And most of the dialogue, like 90 something % of it is voiced. So you can just constantly, and you can repeat the voice as well. So once I went through that, I read through that visual novel. I didn't do any flashcards on it. I just read and read and read. And by the end of it, I was like, dang, this is actually really fun because I'm remembering words and my word count on Link was going up. So whenever I started, I don't remember, it's kind of hazy, but like, I went from like 3,000 known words when I started getting more serious about reading. And then I went all the way and then it just skyrocketed. So by the end of 2023, I went from 3,000 to like 11,000 known or like 12,000 known words. And then it just kept, skyrocketing from there on out. And so I just spam reading and that's like actually works. So it did take some work. Like I had to just trust in the process that it was working. And, it only works if you really give some time, right? If you just push and try to do things like that, like I started getting super motivated because I realized that this is actually working. And like the stuff that I was doing before, like it just wasn't working. Really, in reality, what I was actually doing was immersing myself more instead of just like sitting in Anki and doing like an hour of flashcards a day and then like not doing so much immersion. What I was really doing was just constantly doing immersion and looking things up. And I realized the more you do that, the more things will start to stick to you. So don't get me wrong, even though I use this website called Link and I prefer like reading, you could still do the same thing with flashcards, but I just wouldn't focus so much on flashcards, right? Like I think frequency lists of like Anki decks are really helpful and it does help do a good base, like if you're studying for like JLPT and stuff like that. But if you're going to do Anki, I would just focus more on consuming the stuff that you're interested in. So like do flashcards, like maybe 10 cards a day, or 20 at the most, but just spend all of your time watching and consuming the language, right? For me, it's reading. I love reading and I love hearing the language. And, I watch a lot of YouTube videos now and there's tons of ways you can do it. But I think one of the most important things for this to work is to constantly look things up, read them in different contexts, and also hear the audio for the words. And all of that combined is how I figured out that this just works. And it's just so fun because I'm immersing myself rather than just kind of isolating myself in Anki, which at the time I thought was really helpful for me, but I just found out now it was not helpful for me. Like don't live inside of Anki. Anki is just a tool, right? Like I feel like personally you'd be more beneficial just doing like 5 or 10 cards a day and spending the rest of your time just consuming all the material in Japanese as you possibly can. An example of what it looks like when I study, I just simply, I installed this like online dictionary called Yomitan. What's so cool about Yomitan is that you could look up like any word that you could select and it gives you, most of the time, it gives you a definition with.
It's called Language Reacts. You can look it up, Language Reactor. Once you download this extension for Google Chrome, it automatically transfers into like YouTube in general. You don't have to really choose this. You can just download the Language Reactor from the store. The Language Reactor, Chrome extension. You would just get the Language Reactor from the store, and then you'll go on YouTube, and that's it.请问你没有并文正阅读，这是快速OK 语言 颜色和黄色吗？这方法是让多次出现的单词多看而记住它们的。绝大部分的时间我不看完所有全部的文件，所以绝大部分的时间我只有不理所有的已经学过了的词，因为如果你比如说在有关，你会看过一个视频，每个视频有一个字母，在这个我看视频的时候，你已经自然会看过这个字幕，那个是你的阅读的锻炼，你的训练的对，所以你在 link 的时候 ，link 的目标就是你可以选每个字，但是所以为什么他们创造了一个 link， 或是给你一个机会，阅读你的喜欢爱的文件是这样的，或者是你喜欢哪个本书，对。但是我个人的方法是不同的，因为我的方法就是，OK， 我用这个link 的软件就是学词汇量，所以然后那个所有的 link 的知识，我会转换从 link 的link 的学过的词到有关，所以有关的时候，你真的学习的时间，因为你看视频的时候，你真的会进步越来越快。对，所以你需要 link 的功能就帮助你学词汇量，但是给你一个机会，你在有关视频的时候，你可以认识你已经学过的词，给你一个很好的机会，就理解那个全部的句子，对，所以这是快速岭南黄色嘛，这个方法是很多是，对，因为你用 link 的时候，你会每个所有的正常发现的词总是在会发现，所以你不用担心。所以如果你看过一个词，但是目前不知道，但是可能几天之后你会发现这个词在出现的，所以因为你需要大概20几次以上看过一个这样的词，对，但是在不同的情况会必须看这样的词，但是问题就是 OK， 对，因为我的想法是完全不一样的，对，因为 link 就帮助你选每个字跟越来越好的对比。如果比如说你用 Anki 那个日本的软件，对，所以我有一个Anki 一样的想法，就是每个字你是在一个前面有一个你想要选的字，但是在后面有一个已经反应过了的字，对不对？所以，如果你在 link 的时候是一样的概念，你看过一个词，好像是 Anki 的前面看过的卡的，但是你摸摸那个字之后，好像是 Anki 的你晃或是翻过了那个的卡，然后你已经看过那个定义，所以 link 是一样的。你摸一个字的时候，在右边会给你一个直接的定义或是发音，对不对？所以这个逻辑是一样的。但是如果你只有关于英语就是 speed reading 是一个概念，就是你可以看本书超级快的，所以这个概念就是OK，很多那种的人这么阅本书很快的。他们就直接用他们的眼睛，所以如果你用眼睛的时候，绝大部分的人一般会跟自己或是内心会在说那个字，比如说你看一个字，然后你会打上说的那个字，对不对？但是这个让你 学越来很慢的，所以这个方法不算是有效的。所以我建议你可以做一做关于这个概念，就是 speed reading， 或者是可以直接给一个反应。速度，对，所以 speed reading， 如果你理解我那个词，所以那个区别就是他们有他们的眼睛，然后他们有一个像那个词，所以他们有一个特别的地图或是一个照片。如果比如说我看过一个狗，所以可能那个比如说有一个狗的照片在你的脑部里面，或者是你的想法就是 OK， 我想象一个狗，对不对？所以然后你就再做这个循环的，你看过一个字，然后你有一个想法，或有一个照片，一个地图，对，所以这个想法是更快的提高你的学习的速度，或是怎么说，提高你的学习语言的方法，对。所以 OK， 你的问题就是我不看网那个全部的，或者是整个变文，是变或是偏文章，对，所以我就不理所有的已经学过了的词，因为如果你看过一个视频，或者是你提高你的听力能力的时候，你已经在背每个字，对不对？但是在这个视频里面，一般背你一个最重要的字，你需要的字，对不对？所以没有区别。但是如果你的目标就是阅读，阅读很好的 OK， 你可以专注看每个字。但是我的想法就是，我的目标就是我想跟另外的人聊天，但是你需要什么样的条件？你需要一个很好的听力能力，和你需要个说法的能力很好的，对不对？所以你这么来有个很好的听力的能力，首先你需要 OK 词汇量，但是我们一般的人以为你需要看每个字，然后你必须理解每个字。OK， 如果是那个是你的菜，你可以继续进行吧，你继续阅读。但是不是我的菜，因为我觉得这个让我的进步越来越慢，所以我发现，如果你不理每个字，你可以提高你的听力能力越来越快的，所以我就继续做这个方法。对，至少你可以在 LingQ 选每个字，或是有一个想法，就是你理解的大概80%，或是从70%到80%左右。对，所以从那点的话，你需要转换那个知识到有关，所以我建议有关，因为他们有很多超级多的内容每个，但是然后你可以直接说你想要看哪个内容，还有他们给个字幕，所以这个是最重要的。如果他们有字幕，你肯定你已经在 LingQ 有学过了的字转换到有关，然后让你很好的，你可以享受更多你看过的视频，因为在有关是真的有一个进步。对，因为如果你用 LingQ 的时候，你没有什么样的进步，就是给你一个机会理解另外的人说啥，因为我们的最后的方法就是对。谢谢你的方法有新的启发，我都是整篇阅读，一天学习时间也有限，文章里面其实已经很多学过的词了，学的真的很慢。对，我觉得可以尝试你的方法是提高词汇量。OK，对，但是如果有问题可以问我，但是 希望你不怪我，如果你不成功，因为我的想法就有点不同的，不正常的，对。对，你满足了吗？因为这是我第一次给这样我个人的想法，关于这样的知识，对，没有什么另外的方法告诉你吗？对，LingQ 一个机会学词汇量好这么快的，好像 Anki， 但是区别就是你在一个不同的环境，好像你阅读本书一样的环境，所以这个算是非常重要。这是我们的自然的环境，因为你在学校的时候，这部分时间你从左边到右边看这个本书，对不对？所以然后这是我们的已经自然的情况。但是如果你用 Anki 给一个卡，然后在前面和后面有一个你想学过的词，还有你已经知道的词，有点不自然的，因为我从来没有从小到现在有这样的方法，对，完全不一样的。How long have you been studying Mandarin? When I saw the title of the live stream, I thought you were just learning it, but you've been speaking it for a bit now. Oh, August is the 5th year. So if you known me on Link, the application, I started on August 1st, 2021, and now it's almost August 1st, 2026. So about 5 years. So I've been speaking it for a while. I started speaking like 1.5 year in. So about when's 1.5 year in? February 1st of 2023, somewhat. Yeah, somewhere around there. Just put it back right there. And I started learning how to speak from classes because we hyper focus on one language. You're going to be thinking in that language all the time, which allows you to eventually speak. And when you attend like a class online, you're going to automatically trigger your words that are in your brain that you haven't spoke yet into active words because you're on survival mode and your brain is at full capacity of full functionality to actually find the words you need to survive the situation. But yeah, speaking will come later. If you're hyper focusing on one language, it'll come naturally. It just takes time because you need to listen to the crap load and understand what you're listening to actually trigger it.
With like actual pronunciation. Sometimes they don't have it, but a lot of times, when I look something up, I immediately have them tell me what it is if I'm just curious, right? And also for learning kanji, I disable furigana. I think that enabling furigana like all the time, which you can do on this website, I don't like to do that because it doesn't let me test out my reading. So like I like to see, do I understand this word? Okay, if I'm a little iffy about it, I'll look it up, right? So like I know this is reizoko, which means refrigerator, but I would look it up if I didn't know it. And it would tell me, and obviously it tells me exactly how to read it with the furigana right there. So I just do that over and over again, and I also listen to it, being said in the video. So.
よし、今日何作ろうかな。鶏肉あったわ。
So yeah, and that's basically what it looks like. I use this a lot of like YouTube videos are another just great way to do this. But every day I'm examining the language and I'm reading subtitles as I go on. And so all the white stuff is stuff that I know, and all the stuff in yellow is stuff that I don't know like completely, or like I'm close to like knowing it. That's all you really need to know. But like, yeah, I mean, I can read kanji. Like I don't know how else to explain it that I just know. If I see it enough, I just know. So like, I know this is teriyaki. Yeah, like reizoko, like, right? It is like a common word, but like what's crazy is that like what I mean is that like I just see words. Like I know that this probably means like something like cold. I don't know what this means, but I do know that it probably means like storage. But when they're together, I just know it means reizoko because I've seen it so much.
必要だから。
So yeah, like sometimes I'll read out loud and I'll just
これ
test
だ
my,
けでも。
test if I read it right and I'll just look it up. And if I didn't read it right, then I can correct myself with the actual pronunciation and then I just practice.
リアクションに使えちゃう。
袋にしまって。
閉まる。
So I'm just like showing you that like
袋。
I actually know how to read these. 戻す return.
戻す。
引っ張る。
引っ張る。
Just saying, like,
引っ張る。
because I read over and over again and I look up things, I just look at it and I know it, right? I'm pretty sure this means pool. This kanji probably means pool. I don't know what this kanji means, but I know it's hiparu. It's magic. I'm telling you. こんばんは。今日は金曜日の夜。1週間僕ら仕事頑張ったから、これからお寿司を食べます。I'm like bad at reading out loud, but like in my mind, it's a lot faster. I'm still working on my speaking, but like I'm just showing you that I know these words. 頑張ったご褒美ということで、寿司を食べに行こう。今日はくら寿司がそうだね。回転。
Oh, nice, man. I got a Korean tutor on Preply as well. I used to do italki for Mandarin, but then the prices got too high. So if you ever feel like you decide to switch to Preply because of the prices, you know the prices are a lot better in Preply. But because in italki they don't accept any new teachers, and it's pretty competitive for them to even get in there, which leads to higher prices eventually as they stay on. So if you ever want like more cheaper, then you can always go to Preply and find from cheapest to most expensive. You can always filter super tutors, and that's like your highest chance of finding like a better quality, low cost teacher.
寿司だね。そうだね。めっちゃ人気の回転寿司チェーン。マジで楽しみ。But I do this as I follow along. I don't do a lot of reading out loud, but so I could always be better at it. But like, I just wanted to show you that like I could read a lot of these things that I'm supposedly supposed to be able to read. So like, even though a lot of, this is pretty simple video, a lot of it. So yeah, I just want to show that like things do stick in my head, even if I'm not like the best at speaking. I'm actually working on my speaking right now, but like it really does work. Again, this has nothing to do with speaking. So even if my speaking is not the best, just knowing how the furigana is pronounced in the kanji is what I'm talking about. The bottom line is you just have to consume enough. You just got to.
How long have you been studying Korean and Mandarin for, Roger David?
Do it every single day as much as you can because you enjoy it, right? And the more that you see kanji in meaningful context, the vocabulary that the kanji uses, it kind of teaches you the kanji, and it's just a really cool phenomenon. Like I don't really understand how it works. The way that I kind of like read Japanese is it reminds me of this. According to a researcher at Cambridge University, it doesn't matter in what order the letters are in a word. The only important thing is that the first and the last letters be at the right place. The rest can be at a total mess, and you can still read it without any problem. This is because the human mind does not read every letter by itself, but the word as a whole. And I feel like this is the best way that I could explain how it feels for me to read Japanese, even when I don't know all the kanji. It's like you just got to be acquainted enough with it, right? See it enough times, and just your mind just will remember how to read it. And also, like the more words you read, you'll be able to read other words. It's crazy. It's a crazy phenomenon. And yeah, I'm not the only person to talk about this, even though I came up with it in 2023. There's this another really good video by Trenton. If you don't know who this YouTuber is, he's a really popular Japanese language learner YouTuber as well. And yeah, he has another video that says basically the same things that I'm saying right now. But I just wanted to give my take on it. And just like before I seen this video, I came up with the same exact conclusion. In his video also, he talks about this other video. You don't have to study.
Yeah, exactly. You're on italki, the quality is usually better. It's just you have to pay a different price because they all been on that app for many years, but everyone in Preply could be generally new. So I guess that's the difference, is the experience, and you just try a few Preplys, and then you might find one that clicks with you, whatever your style is. You just ask them, and then one of them will eventually just find exactly the style you want, which is nice. It just takes few tries. So 1 little year of Korean and 2 months of Mandarin. Awesome, man. Yeah, Mandarin is kind of fun. Very tiring, but it was worth it though. Korean though, Yeah, I'm in the same boat as you, just learning Korean as well, trying to get by. I forget how much of a pain it is to start from scratch on a new language. It low-key annoys me that I can't read Mandarin yet and struggle to say simple things by me. I can easily say in Korean. Yeah, Korean is like the benefit is that you have the short term right, but then the hard part is the long term is when the grammar starts. There's too many grammar rules and it keeps going on forever and forever. But Mandarin has a thing is the barrier to entry is a lot higher when you start, but once you get there, then it pretty much is infinitely easier because it's so similar to English grammar. So it's pretty much plug in, but for Korean, it's not really plug in until you get like a certain level in Korean that you say, okay, I can reuse these grammar points, and all I have to do is just input, and that's it.
the kanji, and this is a Japanese person talking about the same exact thing. He talks about like a lot how how every kanji has different meanings. So it's better and more beneficial to learn the vocabulary in itself. And I just feel like this is not a super popular take. And when I saw Trenton's video, it was just like me confirming that, like, oh my God, I've been thinking this entire time. So I also wanted to like give a shout out to that video because for me, like, yeah, it really resonated with me. And I just wanted to, do my part in spreading the word that, like, bro, just read more. There's other examples too of like people that learn Japanese, and eventually it all just boils down to spending more time with the language. The more time you spend in Japanese, the more that you'll start to remember the vocabulary. And it's really just as simple as that. But yeah, you can do this with Anki, but really the most important part is just spending the time in it. Don't do what I did and only just do flashcards and spend all of your time in flashcards and not getting enough context for the language. So I think if you can do that, then you'll be better off when it comes to reading Japanese. And again, this is just about reading Japanese. Obviously, if I want to get better at speaking, which is something I'm documenting right now, and I'm working on it personally. I'm bad at speaking. I've talked about this before, but I need to practice speaking more. But the more vocabulary I learn, it's going to make speaking so much easier because I know the vocabulary. I'll be able to pull the vocabulary out, or I just got to get my mouth used to saying the words, but I know that this works. And so I wanted to share that with you guys. Let me know what you think down below. And yeah, I'm going to keep documenting my journey. I'm working on speaking right now, but yeah, I'm excited for the future of this channel. If you enjoyed this, smash like. Let me know down in the comments if you agree, disagree. I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of people that disagree with me. Again, I'm not saying that like knowing what kanji are called is not going to be beneficial, because you can still make guesses of what words are because you know the meanings, like, of the kanji, but you can't get past learning the readings. You still have to learn the readings no matter what. So this is just my take on the whole thing. So let me know what you think. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today is gonna be a little bit of a different video, but it's gonna be about Japanese. That's always gonna be the case. So I wanted to make a video kind of about motivation and tips to stay active, to keep going, right? The number one rule in Japanese is that you want to keep going, and it's not something that you wanna do once per week. You wanna do it every single day. So there's tips that I have that I kind of wanted to make a video on motivation, but there's this one video that keeps just sticking out to me, and it's called Immersing Even When It Sucks by the username Miku Mino. I've seen one of their videos, but I haven't seen this video. So I thought, let's do a reaction video, since reaction videos in language learning these days are really popular. Reaction videos are popular in general. I'm a YouTuber after all. But yeah, I'll link their channel down below. They actually have like 4 videos, and they're all really popular. Yeah, 4 videos, and they haven't uploaded in 2 years. So I'm hoping they're still studying Japanese, because their videos, at least I've seen this one, I think they're pretty good. Look at the views that they got. That's really insane. Come back. Upload more. Anyway, I'll link it down below if you want to check out their channel. But I am going to be pausing a lot and talking about my own tips So if you don't want my pausing, then go watch the original video, which will be linked down below. All right, let's get started.
I still remember the utter frustration I felt when immersing after the short initial burst of motivation wore off. I'd gone through 1,000 words on Anki, and I guess I just expected that the amount of vocab I learned would somehow magically make immersion easy, but it didn't. Of course, the way to fix this is with more immersion, but actually getting myself to immerse was the issue itself. When sentence after sentence just goes in one...
Yes, I also, in the beginning, like I've said before, I did the Tango N5 deck, which is like, so it's based off of the JLPT, and there's 5 levels to the JLPT, and it starts at 5 being the easiest, and number 1 being the hardest. And I went through a frequency deck of N5. I know I did all of N5, which I believe was 2,000 words, or was it 1,000? I can't remember that. I started N4, but I didn't really do N4. Obviously, I probably know all those words now. At least I know most of them, surely. At the very least, I know like almost all of them based off of like the way that I've been doing it. But yeah, I remember after, you feel like you're doing a lot of Anki or like flashcards and you've done maybe 1,000 or a couple of thousand, you think, oh, I'm good, because right, like I see so many other people saying like, oh, if you know like the 200 most common words, or it'll be like a kind of low amount of number, like it'll be like 100 words or 200 words of the most common things in any language, then you can understand like 80% of it. I'm here to say that's absolute bullcrap. Even if you do Anki cards, you think that you really know the words, you probably don't actually know them as well as you think they do. So when you see them in actual real life, it still feels like gibberish. And yeah, I actually went through that. I've talked about this before, but I went through the same exact thing where it's like, I don't really know the words just like I really thought. Like, yeah, Anki is kind of like, it's a whole different meaning when you see it in the real life, because if you make a flashcard, an Anki flashcard, you're only using one context of the sentence. So a lot of words in Japanese have like 5 different meanings, basically. And it's all depending on the context. And that's an exaggeration. Maybe not 5 meanings, but there's sometimes a few meanings that could, using the same word. And unless you're making multiple sentences, flashcards with different contexts, then you don't really get the full idea of the word. So yeah, I totally get that.
Year and out the other, immersion can be just straight misery. Stuff like anime is meant to be consumed for entertainment, but spending an hour on a 20-minute episode staring at subtitles and not making any sense of the sentences isn't fun. It's tedious. Fortunately, I feel like I've mostly gotten over these initial growing pains, so I wanted to share what I did to get over that and have fun immersing.
I guess I should explain what immersing is. Maybe I'll do my own future video about this, but what immersing is it's pretty self-explanatory, is that you're immersing yourself in the language that you're trying to learn. This case is going to be Japanese. And I feel like the immersion learning approach was popularized by Katsumoto, who is the one that started AJAT. He's not the first person to talk about immersion learning, but when it comes to Japanese, AJAT, which stands for All Japanese All the Time. So yeah, it was a website created by this guy named Katsumoto, which I'm pretty sure wasn't his real name. But because of him, things like Matt versus Japan, who's really good at Japanese, and other people people. It just spawned like this cult. You know, I say that as a joke. I don't really think it's a cult, but like it was a big movement. AJAT. The website has been taken down now, or at least it's not up anymore. But there is a playlist on YouTube of all the blogs from the creator Katsumoto. And the main method was basically creating your own immersion environment, right? We don't live in Japan, right? Or unless you do, you're lucky. But even if it's not Japanese, the idea of immersing yourself in a language is to create the environment at home, which is why I got all this crap around me. You want to create your own environment because if it's anything like my case, I have like 2 Japanese people maybe that live in my town. So it's not exactly easy to make like Japanese friends and speak Japanese every single day. So what you do instead is you create that immersion environment at home. You're constantly filling all the gaps with Japanese as much as you possibly can. That's what immersion learning is. I want to do an AJAT video because I love AJAT. I love the method. Like, it's just really cool, and it's got a lot of history. I want to make a video about that pretty soon. But anyway, yeah, he also talked about, like, you know, spending, what, it was like an hour on one episode or something. I don't know if he said an hour, but yeah, I don't think you should do that. I really don't think you should be stuck on an anime episode. If you don't understand something...
Honestly, mini stories, honestly, I would just go through like 3 of them, but I personally don't use them. When I started, of course, every single person had to start with the mini stories. You could go through them, but you don't have to do them all. I recommend going on YouTube and just you can search comprehensible inputs on YouTube, and you'll definitely get some kind of response. Like comprehensible Korean, like to start the language, right? There's so many of them nowadays. You can bring them into link anytime you want. Because now, especially since they allow imports on auto-generated text, it's pretty much a godsending. It's pretty useful to just... I recommend getting all comprehensible input in the beginning stages. To transition from beginners to intermediate, you would just increase the speed of the audio because they speak slow. But when you speed it up, it's harder because it's faster, closer to a native speaker speed, but the vocabulary still is the same. It's still easy. So it's a perfect way to transition between beginner and intermediate.
대요. 한 입만. 예요. 과일을
something, try to understand it, but if you don't, move on, because you're gonna die from boredom if you're just stuck on one thing trying to understand it, and especially you're trying to beat yourself up for not understanding it. That's bad. Don't do that. I've talked about this before a lot, but yeah, you want to make it fun. All right, so we got tip number 1, which is rewatching content. Okay, see what they have to say about this.
Easier was rewatching things that I've seen in English. This might seem really obvious, but a big part of why immersing can be unenjoyable is because you're not getting anything. It's not fun at all to watch something and only understand that a girl is speaking, unless you're a Hoshiomi.
You nice. Yeah.
So instead of
VTubers, I never got into VTubers. Like, I think the only one that I kind of got into a little bit was, what was her name? Rusia or something? I can't remember her actual name, but I think she stopped being a VTuber. And then the only other one I got into was K-san. She was pretty cool, but I stopped watching. I just can't stick with it. And VTubers are just huge, and I just never got the hype. But they're really good, right? That's just not what I enjoy. But they're really good for hearing natural spoken Japanese. So, you know, if you're one of the freaking millions of people that are actually super into VTubers, then that's a great way to immerse in Japanese and learn Japanese too. Like, right, just turn on the subtitles and, you know, use that.
So instead of stressing about not following the content at all, you can use your memory of the content to lighten the load that your brain is carrying to instead focus on understanding words you've seen from your spaced repetition. I remember feeling...
Yeah, so the thing about like AJAT and a lot of those people is that the idea is that you don't want to be using English to learn Japanese. The idea is you want to like immerse yourself, and you basically want to pretend that English doesn't exist at all. You don't want to rely on English too much. But on the contrary, knowing what could happen in a episode, and you know, even Matt versus Japan has talked about this too and recommends doing this, which he was a huge AJATer. I completely agree with this. Especially if you're a complete beginner, and you know like nothing, say like you don't know a lot of words, but you want to do some immersion, rewatching the shows that you do know in English already, just knowing what happens can really, really help you associate with some of the Japanese words that are being spoken with stuff that you already know that's happened. So if you're hearing a word a lot, and you're like, wait a minute, I know what they said in English at this part. So maybe this word means this, you know, the English meaning. That's not always going to be the case, but that could, if it keeps you going, to be able to know what happens in an episode. Just watch it in English, read it, you know, and then go back and rewatch it in Japanese. I used to do that with Clannad. I would read the, the English subtitles, and then I would, on LingQ, I think I would read it in Japanese a lot. Yeah, it actually did work a lot for me. And, especially then, because I didn't really know a lot of words that I do now. And eventually, the more words that you learn, you're going to stop doing that because you'll just be able to, understand a lot of it. I think that's a great way to do it as a beginner. And so I totally agree with that. It's like mainly you want to stick with Japanese, but using just the meaning alone, or just like looking at the summary of an episode, like an English summary, could be more than enough to, keep you going.
Dumb when I first started immersing, since I was struggling through easy shows. However, once I started rewatching some of my favorite anime, I found it a lot easier to enjoy immersion. Blue Moon to You is my favorite anime of all time, and when I switched from new shows to rewatching Blue Moon to You, I felt like I was unlocking a whole new world. Next is not watching only easy shows. This might sound counterintuitive because a large part of learning through immersion is getting comprehensible input, right? Well, yes, but that doesn't mean you have to watch only really low-level stuff. The common advice is to start with slice of life content since it's easy and usually emulates speech in.
Hey, I am a firm believer of slice of life content. I love slice of life anime. And maybe that's why this has been easier for me too, is because even when I was watching stuff only in English, I was still a big fan of slice of life. Slice of life, gang, rise up. Rise up, slice of life, gang. I love that crap, which is why I have always recommended it. So when I started learning Japanese, I'm like, okay, yeah, no, that's definitely the way to go. But at the end of the day, not everyone loves it. I have a few friends actually that can't stand slice of life. I have some that do, some and more that don't. And they only like things like, Attack on Titan and Chainsaw Man and stuff with action in it. And I get it, right? At the end of the day, if you don't enjoy it, maybe you shouldn't do it. But I think it would benefit you to just learn to enjoy slice of life. You will be doing yourself a favor. If you can, watch Clannad. Just trust me. Just listen, hear me out, okay? Watch Clannad. I don't care if you don't like slice of life. Watch it all. Clannad and Clannad After Story. And then it might change your mind because it's a masterpiece, all right? I had to say it. But yeah, when I was first learning Japanese as well, I know this one show, Shirokuma Cafe, I think is what it's called. Like that show was mentioned everywhere because it was
Alright guys, thank you for your time. Just gonna end it here. This is pretty much just my daily, but any questions, send me a message as always. Discord is always open as usual, and thanks for your time.